Right,
Oh,
so
that
we're
seems to
recording.
work.
Right,
Good,
so
right.
we are. Oh, Johnny Oriel's joining us. That's nice of him. So we'll let John in, and we'll just see if Paul comes back, and then we'll put Derek on main screen, and we'll get started. John,
Right.
lovely to see you. Hello, John.
Hi.
Oh,
Look,
come in. Wow, what an
you all
introduction.
right, mate?
Hello.
Yeah. So, John, are you a Pink Floyd fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good then. Well, my friend Derek is a music historian, and what he does once a month for us is does deep delve into the past of a significant artist or musical
That's
moment.
quite interesting.
You know, he's picked Pink Floyd, but going back right before they were called the Pink Floyd, and then obviously he'll
Aha. I think I might be in now, Tony.
You are,
We've got
Paul. We
you.
can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well
we can
done,
hear you.
mate.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go back as far as Ummagumma, which was the first album of theirs I bought when it came
Well,
out.
you'll be more than welcome to chip in with that sort of info in a few minutes' time. Anyway, let's let Derek get started because obviously it's nice to get things running in the right order. So anyone watching us on Facebook, thank you for joining us. I know it's Bank Holiday Monday, and we're going to be doing 30-minute podcasts with Formby Radio from now on. So this is our first go. So I have to keep an eye on the clock. And after 30 minutes, we'll try and make sure we're all not doing something so we can edit it later. But thank you for joining us and watching. If you're not joining in the Zoom itself, my friend Derek Shelmerdine runs a website called Rock and Roll Unraveled. As part of this show, there'll be a quiz later on, and a winner will win a signed copy of the book behind Derek's head. You've all had there, always got one in front of his head. Now, this book will keep you quiet for at least an hour.
It's a good title.
At least an hour, because it's about 800 pages. And Derek will tell you more when we get to the competition. But guarantee that every month when Derek's our guest, we always go back and go through the chat and find someone who's answered the question. And Derek signs the book for them, posts it off, and they receive it. So
absolutely,
a little bit of a thank you and a treat if you bear with us for at least the first hour of the show.
Exactly.
We've got a lot to get through tonight, so we've got lots of archive recordings. Andy Hesford is going to sing in the style of Sid Barrett. So he says. And I think Jason and Heather might well chip in with something folky and psychedelic-y later on. Jason will have to have a little think now what they can do. So John, I don't know. John, we'll put you on the spot. Is there anything you could play at a point in the next hour or so?
Not now, because I wasn't anticipating I would.
You're just here to enjoy yourself.
I suppose the only thing I could do off the top of my head would be "Wish You Were Here," but I mean, I'm not going to do that.
Brilliant.
Well, we might come back to you on that.
I much preferred the early stuff.
Yeah.
Something like sort of secrets.
Well, we're going to start with we're starting with all the early stuff, Derek, aren't we? Basically.
Oh, absolutely. Way before they were even Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
So I was knocked out by that. The end bit of is it Source Full of Secrets, the final sequence, which is just this wonderful organ kind of chorale, really.
Yeah. Awesome album.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So let's get started. So Derek, thank you very much as ever for offering to be our special guest tonight.
My pleasure.
Over to you to set the scene, and then we'll move on, album by album and song by song and anecdotes and stories as we go. So let's get started.
I've got a PowerPoint to just sort of get us in the mood and see what was going on. There is said PowerPoint.
It's not come up yet. Oh, here we are. Yeah, there we are.
Slideshow.
Yeah.
From the beginning, as they say.
Yeah.
Take it from the top.
Yeah, we'll do Genesis another month. That was the real beginning. Yes.
Yeah, Pink Floyd story. Why Pink Floyd? 2 reasons, really. One of my favorite all-time bands. And also, we're celebrating 50 years of Dark Side of the Moon. You can hardly say it's 50 years today or yesterday or last week or last month. because basically on the 20th of January 72, the first ever concert to feature Dark Side of the Moon was played, and it was another 14 months before they actually released it on an album. So at the back end of March 1973, the album came out and it entered the UK charts. And we tend to think of Pink Floyd very much as a stadium band, but it wasn't always like that. And in fact, as a taster, we've got just a brief 45 seconds, minute or so, of 3 pieces of music from 3 areas of their career. The first is when they were called a T-set. This is shortly after Syd Barrett joined. They weren't even called Pink Floyd yet. And they started out as an R&B blues covers band, as we'll hear. Well, why don't we hear it now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a king bee, buzzing around your hive. Yes, I'm a king bee, child, buzzing around your hive. I can make good honey, let me come inside. I'm young and able to buzz all night long. You know I'm young and able to buzz all night long. Well, when you hear me buzz, little girl, know some stinging going on.
Well, the T-set was really the last name that they used before becoming Pink Floyd. And it was Syd Barrett that really took the name from 2 blues heroes, Floyd Council and Pink Anderson. But then they moved very much after the parting with Syd Barrett. They became much more into music scapes and big spread of sound. And this is a little snatch of Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun from Saucer.
Is the shadow that ripens the wine? Set the controls on the heart of the sun. The heart of the sun, 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 the heart of the sun.
No, soundscapes. Floyd, wonderful sounding there. And then move for the last piece of music to their penultimate album, The Wall. Awesome stage show. And this is Gilmour's famous Comfortably Numb.
I turned to look, but it was gone. I cannot put my finger on it now. The child is grown, the dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb.
Well, 3 very different pieces of music, I think.
Derek, just before you tell us this, just very quickly, John
Okay.
Jenkins, a friend of mine, was going to join us tonight, but he's actually at the Philharmonic watching Nick Mason perform
Oh,
Saucer
brilliant.
Full of Secrets. So
Mhm.
we've
That's
got
right.
competition.
Excellent. Yeah, he's been gigging under that name for a while now, because the pandemic, of course, put a stop to most of these gigs, and
Yeah.
now all these bands are back on the road. Because I think Waters is out on the road at the moment as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But this era with the Pink Floyd, I mean, we're very much in the mid 60s, 66, 67. And it was very much a changing time. It was the emergence of rock. Beat groups morphed into rock groups, much heavier sound, with the likes of Jimi Hendrix and Cream. And of course, it was the Vietnam War, and that had a big effect on the music and the counterculture at the time. And we get much more into this. Architectural Abdabs, one of the names that Pink Floyd had before they were the T-Set. And in fact, Nick Mason's been quoted as saying that the band had more names than they did gigs in the early days. And that's before Syd Barrett joined them, the Abdabs. And by the time we get to 67, their first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and they had a gig famously at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, May the 12th, as we can see there. And that's where they used the Azimuth Coordinator, which was their name for what was essentially the first quadraphonic sort of sound system live at gigs. And apparently it was a joystick that the sound guy would move around to have the sound move around the concert hall. So it's good to see them at the forefront. And of course, that was around the time that Syd Barrett sadly moved on, had a brief solo career. And of course, hello, David Gilmour. In fact, Barrett and Gilmour have been chums from the Cambridge days. They'd even played together. Went off busking to France, I seem to remember. And then you get to the sort of international fame time with Dark Side. But they had a album, well, it's not so much an album, more of a stage set of songs and stuff. They used to, often called the mass gadgets of Auxamenes. And that was one of these lost projects, a lost album, as it were. But a lot of that stuff turned up on Ummagumma, a bit like The Who with Who's Next, rising out of the ashes of Lifehouse. And the last time they saw Syd Barrett, and that is Syd Barrett there, nobody recognized him. As you can see, I mean, he's balding, shaved eyebrows, put on a touch of weight there. And they were ironically recording Wish You Were Here and Shine On You Crazy Diamond when he wandered into the Abbey Road studios, and nobody recognized him. And that was the last time they had any contact with Syd. But throughout this particular show, we'll be looking at Syd and the Pink Floyd in parallel. And it's because it's interesting to see how the music diverges and, why Syd went off, really, in a way. And then we come to more landmarks, Animals, Pigs famously breaking loose and heading off into the Heathrow waves. And of course, The Wall, the last album they ever took on the road. Well, that's it really for the introduction, as it were. So if I hit stop share, it all works. So you've got the technologies coming.
When it works, it's great. Unlike every other.
Unlike last month. Unlike last month.
Unlike last time, yeah. And anyway, I'm sure Andy will know this, so we'll just see if anyone else does, because you and I researched this just yesterday. Ummagumma, which was one of the early albums. We're going to see John Uriel knows the answer. Can you tell us what Ummagumma means, John Uriel? Do you know?
It just means the F word.
Yeah. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cambridge slang.
Yeah.
A bit of Ummagumma.
A bit of Ummagumma, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose really that it wasn't, Cambridge isn't Norfolk, but I mean, I suppose it was a kind of thing. I'm more interested in what you might know about the descent of Syd and the changes in style, because I know you mentioned the psychedelic aspect, and something like Interstellar or Astronomy. Interstellar's kind of easy, it's just chromatic down with bar chords, but before it starts getting spacey, and the soundscape thing is just absolutely fascinating. When I heard it, wow, I've never heard anything like this. And there's even YouTube things of Frank Zappa guesting with Floyd and things like that. I mean, it's just fabulous. And they came off from this thing of the UFO Club, Soft Machine, Traffic, lots of people doing the sort of psychedelia. And I think that's the fascinating thing, is to what extent Sid couldn't stand the success, or was it just a drug overdose with this new thing that caused the problems? Because he was so weirdly original, and his post-Floyd albums are just riddled with mistakes as well. So he couldn't hold it together.
Go on, Derek. What's your view or take on
well,
what
yeah, I mean,
might have happened?
Sid Barrett was very much the driving force when he joined the band. They were together. Well, we'll talk quite a bit about what they were doing and up to beforehand. But they were very much a blues R&B covers band when they started, as King Bee suggests. And he was really at the forefront of the British psychedelic scene in sort of 1966, 67 was when that started. And there's a big difference between the American psychedelic scene and the British psychedelic. American psychedelic is much more Grateful Dead, just long, meandering solos and
blues things.
And acid. Yeah, essentially. But the British psychedelic scene was very much all about whimsical lyrics. And Sid Barrett, I mean, you could certainly argue that he was the master of that. I mean, My White Bicycle was mentioned earlier. I mean, Twink, the drummer, turns up later in the story playing.
Oh, yeah, we've got to think about that later, haven't we? Yeah.
But I think what happened was that if you look at the first album, I think Stethoscope is the only Waters composition, Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk. And Interstellar Overdrive is probably the only real soundscape. Might be another one you could argue. But mostly they were Sid Barrett songs. I mean, things like Bike and Scarecrow and all kinds of wonderfully idiosyncratic English middle class images and lyrics. And I think what happened was he just did it. I think it was the drugs that took him over the edge. I mean, we'll talk about various things he wasn't doing when he was supposed to be performing on stage and with Pat Boone and the like.
Well, there was a great quote that you've got for later on, wasn't there? Was that in relation to when he was doing the Pat Boone thing? We did a bit of research, and there was some brilliant quote about Sid and his ability. Do you not remember the quote?
I can't remember that particular.
Oh, well, I've got it written down. I've got it written down.
I know you wrote it down.
Yeah, I've got it written down. So we'll get to that when we get to it. Yeah.
And I think the reason that his solo albums were disjointed, to say the least, were basically, unfortunately, the acid had done for him, as it were. And the creativity was almost there, but he couldn't really execute it, I think, by the time he
couldn't polish, and he couldn't remember consistently. There's that terrible thing that he said to Roger, have you got it yet?
Yeah.
Where basically he comes up with an idea, and then it sounds like he did it, but he did it in several rhythms.
Yeah, and that quote, I've just remembered the quote. It was a lady, I forget her name, who was recording with him, and he said one of the problems is that Sid never plays the same song the same way twice. So every time he plays the song, it's a different version of it. So it made it very difficult, obviously, to work with other people.
But I think that King Bee one you played, about 2 bars in, it changes time signature. The whole song just goes from say a standard 4/4 beat to a 3/4 beat. It just Andy knows this. Go on, Andy.
Well, it wasn't going to mention that. It was something else. There were 6 tracks which were from the archive, which were issued as a limited edition of 1,000. I think it was in 2015.
That might be what we're playing next.
That's what we're playing,
and Double O Bo was one of the tracks.
That's one of the ones
which was a mixture of the Bond theme and Bo Diddley.
Yeah.
But even stranger is if you listen to some of the things, there is a derivative sort of nature in them. Like Interstellar Overdrive, apparently people advised Ron Drainer, who wrote the Steptoe and Son theme, to actually have a look at it. And they reckon it was the Steptoe and Son theme, but with distortion on it. Worked that one out.
Yeah.
But even stranger was he did a track called Vegetable Man.
That's right.
Vegetable Man was like, it was actually a skit of the Batman themes. Vegetable Man, you know. I mean, it was done in such a way that if you listen to it very carefully, it indicates to me at the time that maybe Sid's catatonia, which was in its early stages, I got to the point where his memory was becoming more and more difficult to control, and his abilities became stranger. But that's a part of your narrative, Derek.
Yeah, I think we'll be picking up on this as we go through, because a lot of the music played is Syd Barrett, in a contrast to what the Floyd were doing at the same time. Maybe if I just move on to some of the early stuff they were doing. I mean, Waters, Mason, and Rick Wright all met at Regent Street Poly, as it was then, and they were architects. Studying architecture, and Gilmour was doing his own thing. He joined a band called Jokers. And the Pink Floyd, the earlier names are things like Sigma 6, Megadeths, the Abdabs, Screaming Abdabs, architectural Abdabs. They even called Leonard's Lodgers at one point, because he was the landlord. And just quote some of that article. It was a college paper article that was in the PowerPoint, because it really explains what they were all about at the beginning. This is sort of circa 1964, and what a lady called Barbara Walters wrote it, and she said an up-and-coming pop group here at the Poly called themselves the Abdabs and hoped to establish themselves playing rhythm and blues. Most of the architectural students, and then it gives the names. And Clive Metcalf was with them, and Keith Noble and Juliet Gale, who crops up on one of the songs I think we're playing shortly, were singers. And she asked some questions. She said, why is it the rhythm and blues has suddenly come into its own? And Roger Waters was the first to answer. It's easier to express yourself rhythmically in blues style. It doesn't need practice, just basic understanding. And go on to say basically how to compare to rock. And he says, rock is just beat without expression, though admittedly, rhythm and blues forms the basis of original rock. And then she says that it so happens that all modern jazz enthusiasts. So, you know, the Pink Floyd's background is really quite mixed and varied. And also a bit like the Beatles story on films, is some of them shared flats together. Nick Mason was there with Roger Waters, and a guy called Bob Close figures very heavily in the early part. He apparently was the almost professional musician amongst them. He was a talented guitarist, and he'd got a jazz background as well. And he was very much, it was when he left, around the time of, they call themselves the C-set, he moved on, and Syd Barrett moved in. And that was really when they progressed. Syd Barrett coined the Pink Floyd name, and that's when they moved on. And the music we're about to hear, the lineup is Syd Barrett does most of the lead vocals. Bob Close is on electric guitar. Syd's on guitar as well. Roger's on bass and some backing, and he does actually sing lead on one of them. And Richard Wright there, and Mason.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Walk with Me, Sydney, isn't it? Yeah.
Walk with Me, Sydney, is Roger Waters.
Yeah.
It's the only one he wrote. Sid wrote the other five.
Yeah. So
Well,
should we have a little listen? Should we start with Double Oboe? Because Andy pointed that one out, didn't he? As
absolutely. Gave the haircut.
Is he not playing?
Yeah. Private eye. Hand was fast and his IQ high. DA said double O, you won't last. Slow down, boy, you living too fast. Well, double O had a Cadillac, machine guns and a bulletproof back. Engine take it from a 707. Sounds like a sure way getting to heaven.
And then we'll have a bit of Lucy Leave.
When I ask you to leave, Lucy, please fall away from me, Lucy. Oh, go, little girl. Seeing as I'm so broken up about you.
And then we'll have a bit of Butterfly.
Listen, all you girlies, even though I haven't met you, gonna catch you soon in my butterfly net. You better watch out. Sometime when I watch you, I stretch out my hand to touch you, 'cause it drives me wild to see you flutter by, you butterfly.
And then we had a little blast of King Bee earlier, but this is a cover version, Derek, by Slim Harpo, was it? Was it Slim Harpo?
It was Slim Harpo, the original.
Yeah. It's very euphemistic, this song, isn't it?
Yes.
I love to love
hold on,
to
we're playing Walk With Me,
love
Sydney.
to, baby, you know. I love to love to love to love to love to walk with me, Sydney. It's a dark night. Come on, hold me tight. Well, I love to love to love to, but I got flat feet, fallen arches, baggy knees, and a broken frame. Meningitis, peritonitis, DTs, and a washed out brain. I love to love to love to, baby, you know. I love to love to love.
And we'll see.
Well, I'm a
It's
king
King
bee, buzzing around your hive. Yes, I'm a king bee child, buzzing around your hive. I can make good honey, let me come inside. I'm young and able to buzz all night long.
And we'll just end with, I won't play all of this because I couldn't trim this one.
Remember me? I've been here before. Remember me? I've been here before. Can't you see? I want to stick around some more. Can't you see? I want some love from you. Can't you see? I want some love from you. Don't want.
Oh, some interesting stuff there.
Absolutely.
Just point out that King Bee was in a constant 4/4.
Oh, was it?
Actually, it was
Yeah.
once. Yes.
Yeah. Must have just been my ears, then, mightn't it? Just a quick hello to my friends Cheryl and Rachel who are watching us on Facebook. You can join in the Zoom, girls. I don't, I can't share the actual link live on Twitter and Facebook because, unfortunately, whenever we've done that, you always get people we don't know decide that they want to join in. They don't really want to
I
join
don't
in.
want that. No.
They just dive in and come and make sillies, don't they? But anyone who's watching, if you do want the Zoom link, send me a DM on Facebook or Twitter, or if you got my mobile number, and I'll send you the Zoom link. I'd rather have you in the room than just watching it.
Some interesting extraneous going on tonight.
Could be, could be. Anyway, Derek, back to you. So this was all very early stuff, which is very of the time, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see there the sort of link between R&B and almost the sort of direction they were starting to go in. Yeah, sort of 65 was the time they were sharing the flats. Bob Close moved on. David Gilmour hasn't come on the Pink Floyd scene yet. I mean, he's a band called Flowers around this particular time. And it was sort of late 65, the T-set became the Pink Floyd sound after they took the name of from Pink Anderson and Floyd Council. And it was sort of Octoberish 65 that they played their first gig as Pink Floyd. And there was at the Marquee at the time. This is when the whole psychedelic thing and rock thing was really starting to take off. And the Marquee used to have a weekly gig they called the Spontaneous Underground. I think it was on a Sunday. And it was the 13th of March, 66 that Floyd played it for the first time. I think that was the actual fourth of those particular gigs. And in fact, in the summer of 66, Sid and Dave Gilmour actually went off busking to France together. So, I mean, they both came from Cambridge, of course. But I mean, the Beat era now very much fading away, and the whole difference with rock is much more hard edge. You know, Cream were very much driving that. Underground bands were coming in. Vietnam War was very much, I wouldn't say it quite at its height, but to get some idea of that, it was the March of 65 when the Rolling Thunder, which was the constant carpet bombing, started, and that ran till 1968. And the Tet Offensive was the 31st of January 68, and that was when the North launched hundreds of simultaneous attacks on the South, most of which were beaten back within hours or days. But I think it was Hoi, the old colonial capital, the fighting there lasted about 3 months. And, you know, the whole underground scene was coming to the fore. Bands were starting to use light shows, oil in water, moving around in rather interesting ways. Movies would play behind the band, very often old silent movies like Buster Keaton, Laurel and Hardy, and the likes. And the whole thing was becoming very, very visual. And the whole essence of psychedelia, the idea was to emulate an LSD trip where you were moving out into a different consciousness. And there was a famous gig, excuse me, a quick drop of water. There was a famous gig at the Roundhouse in the October 66, and that was to launch the International Times. They say politics and music were really coming together for the first time. Never really happened in rock and roll as such. But IT was very much bringing politics and music together, as Rolling Stone did in America. And Pink Floyd played this gig, and Soft Machine that were mentioned earlier also played it. Soft Machine very much grew up in the same kind of circuits as Pink Floyd. They often played on
we're playing one of theirs in a minute, aren't we? We're playing a Soft Machine track.
Absolutely, that's one of the next ones to get a feel for what they were about. And of course, the other famous counterculture magazine that came to the UK in 67, it was actually from Oz for a couple of years earlier. For Oz, and it was from Australia, founded around about 65. But they came to fame, real fame or notoriety, with the 1970 School Kids issue that ended up with them all going to court. Actually, the misnomer was that it was actually edited and written by school kids. It wasn't sort of targeted at school kids. And if anybody's ever seen a copy of that, I mean, it is very much a piece of counterculture from the late 1960s. And Soft Machine's interesting. I mean, David Allen's the guy that put them together. Kevin Ayres was bass guitarist. Robert Wyatt, who sadly injured his back badly because he was a drummer originally. He was well known for vocals later. Chas Chandler was one of their early producers. But Graham Allen, they did a gig. Soft Machine did an early gig, and I think it was Paris. And they're coming back into the UK, and his visa had expired. I think he was Australian, so he couldn't get back into the UK. So Soft Machine moved on without him, and he went off and formed Gong, another sort of legendary, strange band of
touring as we speak, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And my brother would have been first in the queue to go and see Gong, I tell you. He loved all this psychedelia stuff. Yeah.
The reason why Soft Machine had that strange sound with it sounds like the constipated organ was because they needed to fill in the absence of David Allen, and they could only do that by turning the organ right up, and it was feeding back. So that's why he couldn't leave gaps. Fascinating, really.
Absolutely.
Well, John's very musical. He plays virtually every instrument, but certainly keyboard, stroke, synth, piano are probably his main thing. But when he hosts a monthly blues rock folk open mic jam night that myself and Andy and others go to, it's great.
Brilliant.
But he's there. But he has a clarinet and record and a bass guitar, a guitar. And his keyboards all set up, John, don't you? You're a one-man orchestra, really.
I don't often take the flute or the sax, but bass.
Oh, hold on, you've muted again, John. Just sorry about that. Go on.
Well, no, I want Derek to carry on. The only other thing I was going to say is what made Sid so wonderful was his kind of uniquely English approach.
Absolutely.
Similar with people like the Small Faces, and to some extent the Beatles. Really, they would focus on English tales, Lewis Carroll, whatever, and also he would have odd chord changes, odd modes, which are more like folk tunes as well.
Right. So, Derek, should we have a quick blast of Soft Machine and a political statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Next medley, Soft Machine from their first album. So booted at all.
Yeah.
And Country Joe and the Fish, I feel like I'm fixing to die. Rag. I mean, this became a real anthem.
Well, it's a great song, isn't it?
It's fabulous.
All right, let's get this up. Hold on. Hold on. Sorry about this.
Well, come on, all of you big strong men.
Uncle Sam needs your help again. He's got himself in a terrible jam way down yonder in Vietnam. So put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next up is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. For me, we're all gonna die. Come on, Wall Street, don't be slow. Why, man, this is war a go-go. There's plenty good money to be made by supplying the army with the tools of his trade. But just hope and pray that if they drop the bomb, they drop it on the Viet Cong. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next up is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Hey, we're all gonna die. Well, come on, generals, and let's move fast. Your big chance has come at last. Now you can go out and get those reds, cause the only good commie is one that's dead. And you know that peace can only be won when we've blown them all to kingdom come. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next up is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, mothers throughout the land, pack your boys off to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, and don't hesitate. Send your sons off before it's too late. And you can be the first ones in your block to have your boy come home in a box. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next up is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die.
What a great song. Did you?
Oh,
is
it
it
is,
a
isn't it?
washboard kazoo in the middle of there?
Yeah.
It's something like that, isn't it? It
Yeah,
definitely
it's a
sounds like
washboard.
a,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
a
I mean, they've
washboard
got their
kazoo.
roots in
It
jug
sounds like
band.
jug band music, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Roots in jug band.
Yeah, but that's not the original version. Well, sorry, that is an original version. That was like one of his early, make the song work demos, wasn't it? That
Yeah.
we had three to play, and there's the more traditional one with like a chant before they start singing, the
Yeah.
Woodstock and the like.
Woodstock
But,
one, yeah.
I think I quite like that one. I think it's
Oh,
got
it's
a
great.
bit more quaintness to it, really.
Exactly.
Alan and Samantha are with us. Good evening, Alan and Samantha. Good time to
evening.
join us
Good
because
evening.
Derek's doing the competition next.
Absolutely.
Anyone can enter, even if you've entered before. We only need an answer off you and your name, and then a winner is drawn within the next week or two, or when Derek reminds me. And Derek will sign a copy to you.
Absolutely.
Have you got the book to hand, Derek?
I certainly have.
So
It's
if
never
you
a
win,
copy
it will
far
keep
away.
you quiet, but it'll make you two inches taller, if nothing else. But no, well, Derek will tell you all about the book in a minute. So, Derek, are you going to share your
Okay, well, let me.
competition PowerPoint with us all?
Yes, exactly. Competition. It's there. Everyone a winner. Slideshow. From the beginning, once again, it's competition time. Yeah, opportunity to win the book. I mean, basically, as we'll see, it's not a terrifying 700-page read from page 1 to page 700 onto infinity, as it were. And this is an opportunity to win a signed copy. Yes, that's me, folks. I'm the author of said book. And what it does, it tells the story of rock and roll from its roots to mid-70s punk, not just the music, but there's a lot in there about the influencing factors, stories about Vietnam War. So, you can follow through the stages that the civil rights struggle went through, the Vietnam War went through. And fear of communism, of course, is the other big thing. particularly on the folk music of the 50s. People like Pete Seeger really seriously fell foul, as did many others. Lead Belly, Paul Robeson fell foul of the communist witch hunts. And the book itself, it's not start the beginning, read to the end. It's in 3 parts. Basically, it's a diary. In the middle there, what happened today. So all the events from 1st of January through 31st of December. And then it's heavily cross-referenced so that every one of those thousands of items in What Happened Today are put into part 1, the timeline. And that gives some chronology, and cross-referenced again into part 3, pocket histories. So the idea is basically that sometimes there'll be longish articles. There's one there you can see about Lifehouse, the Who's famous lost album. But the idea as well is the cross-referencing, it goes on inside this area as well. If the story's saying, and there was a riot at the Who's concert at whatever it was on the 17th of June, 1967, then if there's an asterisk by that, you check out 17th of June, and lo and behold, there's an article then of the story of that particular riot. I say it gets cross-referenced into timeline. And also I had additional information as to things like lineups. You can see there's Dirty Mac there, performed at the Stones Rock and Roll Circus. And it says, Winston Leg Thigh, also known as John Lennon, guitar and vocals. Keith Richard played bass for that. Clapton played guitar. Mitch Mitchell from Jimi Hendrix was on drums for that. It's quite a good thing. If you've never seen it, check it out. Rock and Roll Circus. And it also gives a chronology. You can see careers ebbing and flowing, genres ebbing and flowing. And with the pocket histories, again, I had more information in there. You can see in the middle there, there's a yes one, Mabel Green. The last lineup of that became yes. And what I've done there is just look at where people have been. John Anderson vocals previously in the Warriors, Peter Banks guitar previously with Sin. So what I've tried to do really is shovel as much information as possible between the covers. For the big bands like the Stones and the Who and Zeppelin, look at what bands they were in, how they actually came together, what they were doing before they were, Led Zeppelin, as it were. Record Collector very kindly reviewed the book, and they said that Shelmerdine has made a painstaking effort to document just about every event that will prove significant in shaping popular music, called it comprehensive and invaluable. Thank you very much, Record Collector. One of the highlights of my life when that particular review came out. I kid you not. And for this month's question, what I like to do is just make sure that only anoraks can really reply to this. I'd really like to go to the really bizarre edges of knowledge for this. So this month's question is, who replaced Syd Barrett in Pink Floyd? I will give you one clue. It wasn't Ringo Starr.
Sure.
Yeah, that is a clue. I mean, that's not a red herring. That's not a double bluff.
Okay, red herring, Pink Floyd, yeah.
Who replaced Syd Barrett in Pink Floyd? Now, the answer will be revealed as we go through the show.
So you can either pop your answer in the chat on here, because I get a copy of the chat, or send me a message or Derek a message on Facebook or Twitter. But rather than yell the answer out and then we have to rule you out, enter politely and privately by chat or messenger. And anyone who's watching us, I know there's a few people, my friend Heather and Rachel and Cheryl are watching, and a few other people. Thank you. Yes, enter. Just leave your name and the answer in the messenger box on my Facebook page. Someone's had a go. Couple of people are having a go. Yeah. There's answers coming in. Now, also, if you don't win a copy, you can buy a copy next week Saturday, because Derek is very kindly going to come and support the Words and Music Festival, the free festival of Words and Music, which is going to be at Murphy's Bar on Regent Road in Liverpool, 3 till 8 effectively, we'll be starting a bit before 3, and we might go on just a tiny bit after 8. But we've got 4 or 5 poets. We've got a couple of singers, songwriters. We've got a duo, Catch the Moon, who are rather good. I've seen them a couple of times. They're really good. We've got a punk band who are going to do 20 songs in 20 minutes, Derek. And
Wow.
then we've got a super group, which even has me sitting on stage not doing much. They've given me a tambourine. They've given me a tambourine, and they said just sit there and wave the tambourine around and make it look like you're part of this. But no, they're rehearsing. We've had 2 or 3 rehearsals. We've got Andy Hesford, as you might know, is a well-known Liverpool singer-songwriter, and sometimes it's nice to play with other people. So he's roped in a wonderful drummer called Steve. Samantha's going to sing guest vocals on at least a couple of tracks. Alan, I think, is going to join in on a couple of tracks, yeah. And we've got this amazing guitarist, this Japanese lad called Kasuki, and he's been over to John's jam nights a few times, and we thought it would be lovely to get him on stage playing lead guitar. So him, Andy, Alan and Sam, Steve on drums. I'll be waving the tambourine around, and I think we've got Twee. Twee's going to come and do some backing vocals, Andy, isn't she? And maybe Dave Holden might come on stage and play a bit of guitar as well. So that promises to be a bit of a highlight to the end of the Free Festival. So it's a week Saturday. Doors open at 2:30. We'll be starting between 2:30 and 3. Some great poets, including Saint Vespulas, who's going to come in a papier-mâché head garment. He's going to wear a Crichton head garment that he's made, and he's promised to be outstanding. We had a chat with Tim Johnson, who's an up-and-coming North Wales-based poet. He had a chat with Andy and Alan and Sam and I last night, and we're really looking forward to his stuff. Trash poetry, he goes by. We're hoping Brian Gibson's going to come down and do a couple of his little love pieces, or his pieces of love, as they might be. So if you can join us, please do. Heather and Jason have the bright idea that we should video it and or live stream it. So Andy and Alan and Sam and I will have a chat about that. I can easily video it. I've bought 2 new batteries for my camera and a 128 gigabyte memory disk, which is here. It's got lots of memory on it. That will do the whole day. So we can make a video. Go on, Andy.
You know what it was, Tony? It sounded like, John Shuttleworth.
Yeah.
When I was demonstrating stereos in Comet, I decided to use a high oxygen quality cassette tape and play Too Shy by Kajagoogoo.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just put me in mind of that.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to video it. If we can live stream some of it, then that is a great idea. I think we need to check on the Wi-Fi settings down at Murphy's, which we will do. But if you can come, please do, and bring friends, because it's free. They do tea and coffee. They've got a bit of food on the go. If you're into gin and beer, they do gin and beer. But there's some great acts, and we had a great turnout in January. We had about 60-odd people come in January. It was really, really, really good. And it would be lovely that some of you are there with us. And, then it's easier to do another one in July, Andy. If it goes well, doing another one's easy.
I think we're fine-tuning it.
Yeah, it is fine-tuning. So, Derek, where are we up to? What we're doing? We're doing proper singles now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're now into Pink Floyd.
One of these is a #1 hit, but it wasn't by Pink Floyd.
That's right. Yeah, they've got a way to go before they ever find the heady heights of Top of the Pops. But no, we're now October '66. They did what's often considered to be the first underground performance, and they're very much together now. Syd Barrett, very much the guiding light, lead songwriter, lead singer, guitarist. Roger Waters, bass, did a little bit of writing at this stage. Nick Mason, drummer, and Rick Wright, keyboards. And they were now into the psychedelic effects, mixed media. And in fact, Syd's first single appeared on the 27th of February 1967 on Lane, written by Syd, produced by Joe Boyd, which is interesting. That's about the only thing he produced.
He produced Nick Drake, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was. He did a lot of interesting stuff. That got them to number 20 David Gilmour is still beavering away doing other things. He's with Bullet around this time. But there was an event on the 29th of April 67 that really captures what this era was all about. It was called the 14-hour Technicolor Dream, a sort of infamous British freak-out, as they were called at the times, at Alexandra Palace in North London. We're talking about 10,000 people. And what was happening, the International Times that you mentioned earlier, underground counterculture newspaper, was facing prosecution and needed money for defense. And a flyer at the time describes, and it really gives an idea of what it was like to be around in 1967. And what the flyer describes the event as is London's own hip newspaper, the International Times, presents giant benefit 14-hour Technicolor Dream, 30 top groups, kaleidoscopic color, beautiful people, followed by a free be-in. We had be-ins back in the day as well. Tickets £1. And two-stage mixed media happening, lots of happenings, delivered, mixture of light shows, music and poetry. And if you look at who was there, I mean, it's a who's who of this era. Pink Floyd, obviously, was Syd Barrett. Crazy World of Arthur Brown, The Move, Alexis Corner. It's great to see Alexis Corner on something like that. And Graham Bond, of course, two godfathers of British blues. Yoko Ono was there doing a poetry reading. She'd met John a couple of months earlier, or a few months earlier. Pretty Things were there. Soft Machine. You often found Pink Floyd and Soft Machine on the same bill, or certainly in the same venues. And John's Children. And that was when Mark Bolan was with them before he went off to do his own thing. He beavered away for a long time before he found fame. And The Creation, a wonderful band that played the lead guitar with a violin bow. And apparently Pink Floyd delivered their set as dawn broke. So that must have been quite a sight to behold. And then come the May, there's that Games for May with the Azimuth coordinator. So they were already very much experimenting with sounds. And that was a joystick to move the sound. So the desk guy could move the sound around the auditorium. Must have been amazing to see. And then their second single hit the charts in the June of 67. That got to number 6, so they're doing well. This one was written by Syd Barrett. Now this one was produced by Norman Smith, and he actually produced pretty much all their 60s material. And Norman Smith was the same Norman Smith that was the engineer on all the Beatles stuff from the very beginning through to Rubber Soul. And it's the same Norman Smith that called himself Hurricane Smith and had a hit on both sides of the Atlantic with Oh Babe, What Would You Say? And that was around 1972. And I thought nice to hear both those singles. Both of those were hits. Interesting enough, this is the end of their reign in the singles chart for a long time to come.
So 1979, I think, or something.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's a long way away. And as long as Anne Lane and Emily, we thought it'd be great to hear Arthur Brown. And this is the number 1 that Tony mentioned. It was Arthur Brown's only hit. Now, I know for a fact that Arthur Brown studied philosophy at the University of Reading in the mid-60s.
Is that where you went, Derek?
There's absolutely. I went in 69 doing a bit of engineering. But what's interesting about this, I mean, Arthur Brown, for anybody who's not come across it, he had this one hit called Fire, and he used to perform it with a metal headdress, basically. He filled with paraffin and set fire to it, and he often did burn himself. I mean, the old health and safety obviously wasn't too much around the theatres in those days. And this, surprisingly enough, was his only hit. He was a true one-hit wonder, got to number 1. He's still touring and still performing this.
Does he set fire to himself still, though, Derek?
I'm not sure if he still does that. If he does, he probably has a safer version of the original address.
Oh, you can get those pretend flames these days, can't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, indeed. So we're going to have a little bit of My Brother Loved Arnold Lane. It's about Nicky washing off the line or something.
And apparently that's based on a true story. Apparently there was some strange person in the Cambridge area around this time who was nicking underwear off washing lines. And that was apparently the inspiration for the song.
Yeah, John's quite right. Actually, it does sound like proto Deep Purple Fire, doesn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good shout out. Actually, we must say Jason and Heather don't live that far from Cambridge. You know, they're down in that neck of the woods, aren't you guys? Is it Wisbeck? Is it? Is it where you
Wisbech.
Wisbeach?
We're outside. Wisbeach is Cambridgeshire. We're
Yeah,
about 4 miles from there, and we're in Norfolk.
yeah,
So, but our postcode is Cambridgeshire, but our county is Norfolk. But we always say the people who enter the bins are West Norfolk, so we're right on the border of
yeah,
Cambridgeshire and Norfolk.
yeah.
Right on
So
the border.
I mean, some of this stuff you could go and look in like local archives to check some of these stories out.
Good, but I'm not going nicking off washing lines.
No, indeed, maybe not.
Very
Yeah.
authentic.
Anyway, let's have a quick blast of Arnold Lane and see Emily play, and a bit of Fire, of course.
Arnold Lane had a strange hobby, collecting clothes, moonshine, washing line. They suit him fine. On the wall hung a tall mirror, distorted view, see through baby blue. He dug it on one lane, it's not the same. Takes two to know. Why can't you see? Emily tries but misunderstands. She's often inclined to borrow somebody's dreams till tomorrow. There is no other day. Let's try it another way. You'll lose your mind and play free games from me. See Emily play. I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you fire. I'll take you to burn.
It's not.
Fire. I'll take you to learn. I'll see you burn.
Stop doing that.
You fought hard and you saved and earned, but all of it's gone to burn. And your mind, your tiny mind, you know you've really been so blind. Now's your time, burn your mind, you fall apart, too far behind. Oh no, you're gonna burn. Fire to destroy all you've done. Fire to end all you've become. I'll feel you burn.
Like John said, I mean, now you listen to it, you can hear that sort of Deep Purple sort
Yeah.
of organ
Oh,
sound.
absolutely.
We must just quickly remind people, Colin and Heather up there who have joined us, you can win a signed copy of Derek's book. Derek, have you got a copy of the book, roughly, somewhere to hand? You can win a signed copy. All you need to do is put an answer in the chat or message me or Derek on Facebook. And the question
Absolutely.
is,
Who replaced Sid Barrett in the Pink Floyd?
okay, and if you know the answers to that, don't say it out loud and spoil it for anyone who doesn't know, because sometimes people don't know the answer, and we don't want them upset or cheating either.
Exactly.
So Heather and Colin, if you want to enter, pop the answer in the chat so we know you've answered it, Oh, Alan Hesford's had a go at it. Oh, I'm not so sure he's got that right, actually. I can see an error. I can see an error. He'll panic now. He's going to panic. Yeah. He'll have to go and Google the answer now and come back and tell us. he'll get what I mean in a minute. Oh, that's a bit better. Yeah. But Colin, Heather, if you fancy having a go at winning a copy of Derek's book, the answer is who replaced Sid in Pink Floyd, and we're going a little bit back to the early stuff again, aren't we, Derek? Number 6
Oh,
of the charts. This.
Yeah, I mean, we're now very much at the beginning of the Pink Floyd's career. It's the August of '67 when Piper at the Gates of Dawn, their first album, made its way into the UK charts. It got to number 6. Syd Barrett wrote, 10 of the tracks, most of the tracks. Roger Waters wrote just one, Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk. Some of these albums have fabulous track titles.
There's a small collection of fairy animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a pick.
Ummagumma.
That's right, on Ummagumma, absolutely. Yeah. Waters studio bit.
Yeah.
But the album title, Pipe at the Gates of Dawn, very much Barrett's idea, taken from one of his favourite books, Chapter 7 of Wind in the Willows, Kenneth Graham.
Yes.
So you can see all the time the very quintessentially English references coming into this. Although, having just said that, Chapter 24, another track on this album, was actually inspired by a 5,000-year-old Chinese book called I Ching, the Book of Changes. So it perhaps wasn't so quintessentially English, some of it. And this again was produced by Norman Smith, who now you'll find produces just about everything until the end of the decade. And it was the November of '67 when they set off for their disastrous American tour. Disastrous, it started off badly and went downhill, basically. They had visa problems, cancelled gigs. But now Syd Barrett's behavior is becoming sort of increasingly erratic. This is as early as November '67. They appeared on the Pat Boone show on the 5th of November, and he was silent during an interview with him, and he remained motionless when the band mimed to their latest single, See Emily Play. I mean, that was very typical at that time. Most bands wouldn't play live in a studio, a TV show. They'd mime to the record, and he just gave a completely motionless performance. And it really, in a way, came to a head in the latter part, the November, December of '67. They were on a UK package tour with Jimi Hendrix. This is not the one where Hendrix set fire to his guitar. That had been the earlier Hendrix tour with, I think, Humperdinck. Walker Brothers. But on the bill were The Nice and Amen Corner. But Syd was missing performances. He wasn't able to perform on stage some nights. And David O'List, the Nice the guitarist from the Nice group, would stand in for those particular shows. The Nice were one of the real premier prog rock bands of the time, one of the early prog rock bands, highly rated. Keith Emerson was the organist, keyboard guy. Went on obviously to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And Lemmy, famously of Motorhead, he was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix around this time. I'm not altogether completely sure whether he was on this tour, but I know around this time he was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. So if Lemmy and Hendrix and The Move were all there, it would have been quite a time to be in the tour bus, I would have thought. And I thought for the next piece of music, we'd have a piece from The Nice, and it's off the first album, The Thoughts of Emilist Davjak. And you think, oh, who was Emilist Davjak? Well, it was a combination of Keith Emerson, David O'List, Brian Davison, and Lee Jackson, who were, of course, The Nice. And then for the Pink Floyd, I thought we'd contrast the soundscape of Astronomy Domine with one of Barrett's whimsical piece of psychedelia called Bike.
Yeah, John Uriel's quite right. Roxy Music came on the scene not long after this, didn't they? And that David O'List fella was one of the early people who was involved in Roxy Music, and he was in Jethro Tull, and was it?
He was in Jet. He was also
Jet. Was
very
it Jet?
yeah, and very briefly with Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
When Tony Iommi left, because they were called Earth. Tony Iommi, the guitarist, left and joined Jethro Tull for a while, just long enough to be in that Rolling Stones Christmas special, Rock and Roll Circus. And he left, went back to Earth, who became Black Sabbath shortly after. And O'List was with them very, very briefly in that period. So he played with all kinds of people.
Yeah. So I think it's Rondo we're playing. I think, Derek.
That's right.
We've got a bit of Rondo. We can't play all of it because it's 8 minutes long. But we'll play a bit. We'll play a bit of it, and then we've got a bit of Astronomy Domini and a bit of Bike, and then coming up live in about 5 minutes after this is going to be the
Brilliant.
one and only Lord Andrew Hesford of Halewood playing Julia Dream on the harmonica.
Oh wow!
Played on the harmonica. I'm really looking
this
forward
must
to
be-
it. Underwater.
fights between the blue you once knew. Floating down, the sound resounds around the icy waters underground. Jupiter and Saturn over on Miranda and Titania. Neptune, Titan, stars can frighten. there's a tear up the front is red and black. I've had it for months. If you think it could look good, then I guess it should. You're the kind of girl that fits in with my world. I'll give you anything, everything, if you want things. I know a mouse and he hasn't got a house. I don't know why I call him Gerald. He's getting rather old, but he's a good mouse. You're the kind of girl that fits in with my world. I'll give you anything, everything, if you want things. I've got a clan of gingerbread.
I mean, it's bonkers, isn't it, that?
Oh,
I
it's
mean, you can see
brilliant.
where they borrowed from My White Bicycle or vice versa, though.
Yeah.
Which Jason and Heather are going to play for us in a minute, I think, on
Oh,
the
wow.
triangle and the kazoo, or the upside down mouth recorder, as Heather plays. Heather plays an upside down recorder. Although she plays it left-handed. That's it.
Yeah, I
She's
don't play it upside down because it wouldn't make a noise. I
yeah,
play it left-handed.
self-taught herself to play the recorder, which she can do. She's played it twice before, and she's absolutely great on it. But
She prays it for a fuzz box.
does she now? Yeah. Aye. Well, Andy, you best get yourself warmed up because you're on in a minute. So just very quickly, Genesis must know what a rondo is because they had an album and a song called Abacab, and that's a rondo.
Abacab's a reference to the sections.
Yeah,
A B A C A B.
Yeah, it's a sort of a way of going round, a refrain, as it could be called, isn't it? Yeah,
It's a mode.
it's a mode. Yes. So Derek, we're still back in the early days when were they trying to have hits? Let's be honest. What's your view? Did they want to have hits, or was it an obligation to put something out for the radio and such like? What was going on back then?
Well, what you're looking at now is very much a transition from the early 60s that was very much dominated by singles, and groups would have albums, mostly often comprising a lot of singles. But the singles market became very uncool in the mid-late 60s, in the second half of the 60s. People weren't that bothered about singles, and it was very much an albums marketplace. So I can't imagine that they were bothered too much about trying to make commercially based singles, because basically what happened with in the mid 60s was basically you'd had like beat music in the first half of the 60s, pretty much a linear progression. But by the time you got to the mid 60s, it splintered into psych, folk rock, and all kinds of other metal, and all kinds of other things were going on. And people just really weren't looking for hit singles, and Christmas hits weren't a big deal either, which is why, the Beatles missed out on their fourth one, because they didn't even bother, because they didn't bother to put a single out for the Christmas market. I think the last single they put out was sort of mid-year, Yellow Submarine, and the next one was the following March. So, no attempt to have a hit. So I think they wouldn't have been too bothered, because it brings us really nicely into where we are now, which is the November of '67 and their third single, Apples and Oranges and Paintbox. And Apples and Oranges is the last Syd Barrett single. Rick Wright wrote the B-side, Paintbox. Norman Smith still at the controls. And then it really is falling apart now. This is very much the transition to the David Gilmour era. There was a concert called the Christmas on Earth Continued at the end of December '67 at London's Olympia, advertised as an all-night Christmas dream party. And people there were Floyd, Hendrix, Eric Burden and the New Animals, because of course the old Animals had gone their separate ways. The Move, Tomorrow, Graham Bond, Soft Machine again. And Sid was actually there, but he's just stood motionless throughout the gig or the set. And it was the January of '68 that they had their first gig as a quintet. I've seen that billed as Aston in Birmingham, and that's when David Gilmour and Syd Barrett were in the lineup simultaneously. And often, like, they wouldn't pick Syd up for gigs; they just wouldn't pick him up. They'd go off and go to the last gig he actually played was on the 20th of January. and it was the 6th of April, 68 that he actually was a press release saying that he'd left the band. I mean, that was around the time that their 4th single, It Would Be So Nice, and Julia Dream came. It Would Be So Nice, another Rick Wright composition. Julia Dream was Roger Waters' composition. And this is really where Dave Gilmour comes into the story.
So
And
just in a minute or two, Andy's going to play Julia Dream for
That's
us.
so fun.
At least I hope he is. Are you, Andy?
Yes.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've just put us all on gallery for a minute because thought it might be a nice time to let Paul and Macca and John and anyone else who just before Andy plays and we play a couple more songs, let's let people throw in a little bit of verbal contribution. Paul B, up there next to me, to my left or right, whichever way the screen goes. So where are you on Pink Floyd? Where
Well, I think it's very interesting. I hear so many parallels with the Moody Blues and all the whole sort of Timothy Leary and all around that sort of time. And I still come back to a point that we made. In fact, I think we made it during the show that I did, that at this time you had this wondrous underground culture sharing the charts with the likes of Val Doonican and the Singing Postman. It was just a really
Absolutely.
strange time for music altogether. You'll probably never get that again. And I think Floyd really, because of their span, if you look at the span of their work, they go across so many areas and still manage to maintain it. A lot of the groups seem to have sort of gone out of the mainstream after a decent while. But they seem to have hung on, which is tremendous.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that you say about the similarity with the Moody Blues. I think it might be Lazy. Was it Lazy Day, which was on one of their albums? Lazy Day, something nice to eat. It's got to be lamb because roast beef was last week. It's very Barrett, that line. And there's a lot of them like that. I mean, I suppose the closest equivalent really to some of the things that Floyd did at that time it's got to be English whimsy psychedelia. And I would say, you've got something like Traffic, who were trying to be taken quite seriously, heavyweight, as it were. And meanwhile, they're doing The Hole in My Shoe Is Letting In Water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Or
was
Beaver's
famously
Son,
done by the Young Ones. Remember the Young Ones?
Neil from the Young Ones, yeah, he did it, didn't he? Yeah. John, you're obviously genuinely into all of this period. So, is there anything you'd like to throw in and to us all? Just have to unmute, John. John, you have to just hit the unmute. Oh, hold on.
John, you're muted.
Got it, yeah. Basically, things like Hole in My Shoe was Dave Mason. Things like Coloured Rain and what you call the more adventurous and jazzy things of Winwood Capaldi. Dave had the gift of writing this wonderfully sort of catchy songs. I mean, he was responsible for Feeling All Right and things like that, and they never really got on with him. So he was kind of booted out and came back when they were desperate for songs and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. But essentially that whole thing about the quintessential Englishness and the getting it together in the country was as much Traffic as anything else. And Floyd are as pastoral as anybody else, really. Yeah.
It's the accent when they sing. It's like Nick Drake. I mean, you can hear the English pronunciation in enunciation in how they deliver their songs in the early stuff, can't you? Before they
Nick
went.
should have sounded a Brummie, shouldn't he? Really, but because his parents were kind of really Tony, he didn't. It was imagine sort of one of his songs. Time Has Told Me. It was sounding more like Ozzy.
Yeah, and Jason,
Man.
are you fans of Pink Floyd or?
Very much so, very much
Yeah?
so, yes.
Yeah.
I was born in '67. Jason was born in '66. So
Oh, good year. Good year.
late comers.
Yeah, I didn't really pick them up till sort of 1978.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
My brother who's younger than me. Well, he's not with
and
us
then
sadly anymore, but he's 3 years younger than me. He was a huge fan. He went to see them. Was it Nebworth? Did they
Oh
do a
yeah,
big gig and was it
yeah.
Nebworth? And he went to that and he absolutely loved them. I don't know if I didn't like them because he liked them and therefore I wanted to like other music that he didn't like or whatever. But yeah, yeah. But
I
no,
went to see them
66
at
was a
Earl's
good year.
Court, actually. I
You
went to
saw
see
them
them at
where?
Earl's Court in 1981.
Yeah.
And it was because a friend of mine, George Rogers, said, "Oh, we've got to go. Me and Billy are going. You've got to go."
You could
And the
afford
ticket,
it back in '81 though, Andy. It was probably only about 12 quid.
well, yeah, I could afford it, but the fact was that I felt it was like it was a bit of an absent experience because the moment the wall had been completed at the first half of the show, and you feel, hang on, what's the point of this? Oh, the projections on the wall. I was only 20, remember? It's like, my perspective on it was somehow there was a bit of absence, and I didn't realise until I read more literary sort of critiques of it that that's actually how it was perceived and how Roger Waters intended it.
Well, Derek will tell us all about that soon. Go on, John. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say, I saw Floyd the first time, the Atom Heart Mother tour.
Wow.
And it was without the brass. So it was kind of really weird. So you got the back end of the Ummagumma stuff. And I think they may even have done Grantchester Meadows and things like that, which is still one of my favorites from that period. But I also saw I think it was a proto Dark Side tour, probably Medal or something like that, where they actually used the quadraphonic system. And they may have introduced some of the Dark Side stuff. And I suppose while I get a chance, because you were saying about them being influenced by jazz. You think of the turnaround of Breathe, it's essentially the same as the turnaround of All Blues by Miles Davis. Softly spoken winter. But anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Well observed. Well observed. Macca, being more of a folk,
I will just
guy,
say,
I would imagine. Go on.
I would just say that although at the time I could listen to and enjoy bits like the Cure saying, good in parts, they weren't sort of the top of my hit list. I was at the time very much more into traditional folk and a certain amount of country. So I'd be more inclined to go for the Spinners, Jackie and Bridie, Paul Simon, Alex Campbell, even.
Oh yes.
Very much more. That was more my style than Pink Floyd.
You were a teacher back then. You couldn't take that. You were a teacher back then. You couldn't do the drugs to get into the music. It's in the contract. I shouldn't tell you this.
You need the drugs. You just needed the kind of experimental.
Yeah, I know.
You needed to listen to. You needed to listen to Ummagumma about kind of 10 times before you got it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's how albums should be, though, isn't it? That's the whole thing about a properly made, album, whether it's concept or conceptual, it's not throwaway instant pop. It's something that should sit in your head. I mean, I went to see, I don't know if any of you heard of him. He's a guy called Michael Weston King. He's in a duo called Madonna and Clementine, and they're really good. But he did a solo show in Liverpool about 3 weeks ago. He's just released an album, and I've listened to that album about 8 times now. And every time I listen to it, a different song is the song I want to listen to again, which basically says he's written some brilliant songs. You can't judge them all on the first or the second listen. You suddenly pick up what he's actually talking about or how he phrases things. But if you can get hold of it, it's called The Struggle, and it's. I mean, Paul Macca, you'll love it. I can see it being right up your street. It's got a lovely, rich sort of Johnny Cash type voice,
Oh, nice.
And he's a lovely fellow. He lived in Southport, one road away from where I lived. Well, Colin lives in Southport, in the Churchtown end, the far end. And I chatting to him after the gig because he mentioned Marshside, and I said, "Well, I lived in Churchtown." He went, "Yeah, I lived on Marshside Road." I said, "Well, I lived on Radnor Drive, which is, like one road away." It was just such a weird thing. He said, "We must have walked in and out of Tesco and not known each other." But it's a fabulous album, The Struggle, Michael Weston King. If you're all on Spotify or anything like that, you can get hold of it. But I think it's time to put Andy Hesford in his Bono glasses on on centering stage. You hankering after being in an 80s stadium rock band all of a sudden, Andy, with your Bonos.
No. I mean, anyone who can write the banal lyric, I know you're chewing bubblegum, I know you like it, you still want some, you just can't get enough of that lovey-dovey stuff. I don't want to be Bono. It's more like Bono Mint.
Could you say that with any more scorn than you could muster?
Well, don't get me wrong. Some people write lyrics as stream of consciousness, and other people tend to try a cut-up technique a la William Burroughs. This is not really a problem. What the problem is when you use the wrong cuttings.
Ah, yes.
How much of a bitch am I?
I'm proud of it.
Paul, you know me. You know what I'm like.
Yes, I do.
I'll tell you what, now I can see that properly. I don't need to wear me filter glasses. Right. I bought an album in 1979 called Relics, and it was on MFP, and it was in a reissue of a 1971 album. And this is dedicated to my late friend Ronnie Gilligan, because he was the one who went with me when I bought the album. Alan grew up with Ronnie, and I actually worked with Ronnie. He was my mentor when I first went to work. So this is for him because he actually told me, choose this. Don't go for that album, choose this one. Sunlight bright upon my pillow, softer than an eider down. Will she let the weeping willow wind its branches round? Julia dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams. Every night I turn the light out, waiting for the velvet fly. Will the scaly armadillo find me where I'm hiding? Julia dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams. Will the misty master break me? Will the key unlock my mind? Will the following footsteps catch me, find me where I'm hiding? Julia dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams. Julia dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams. Julia dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams. Julia dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams.
We must all clap. That was rather lovely, Andy. You did that really, really well. That was lovely.
That was many. That was many. I would say it was nearly always a Sunday night when I'd listen to records at home. And Relics. I wish I still had the LP. I've actually got the CD now of it. But I actually gave the LP to my daughter Katie because Katie was saying, "Hey, Dad, why was music so different in 1967? I said, "That's not something I could explain. You have to listen." And Pink Floyd was one thing, and I had a psychedelia compilation and a thing of compilation 1967 music. And she said, "Tell you one thing, Dad, what? I would never have been a fan of Whistling Jack Smith." Well, it was quite dry. But then again,
an earworm, though.
Look at the daughter, listen to the daughter, hear the father. Simple as that.
Uncle Brian Gibson's in the room. Hello,
Is
Uncle
he?
Brian.
Hello, Jim.
mate.
How are you, mate?
He's having his tea, bless him.
Oh.
You can see he's having his cheese on toast.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Oh yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Behind you.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just having a little chocolate coconut.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
Oh.
A
Yeah.
macaroon.
Yeah.
I like one of them.
Jason and
And
Heather, just you could anytime is anytime in the future. But did you want to do anything, perform anything, guys?
Yeah, we can do. We've got a couple of things we can do, but we were just waiting for Derek to finish what he was doing.
Okay.
I think one thing I was going to say is we're in a fortunate position that we're looking back on Pink Floyd, so we can cherry pick, like you get relics and you can get. Whereas the people who were there at the time kind of had to fight the way through the forest, if you like, to find all those amazing songs because there was
a really good point.
But we're looking back from and
You
so
like that?
if you buy music, then you get like the Doors and you get Pink Floyd and you get some early David Bowie all muddled up together, and it's putting the chronology in place without just having, because I've got older sisters who were into David Bowie or whatever, and so that's the interesting thing from my point of view with this is who came, what was the chronology?
Yeah, because I don't know. I just got that album. I got Wish You Were Here first, then Dark Side of the Moon, then Relics. I don't know what order they came in.
Well,
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I'm similar to that, Jason. That was how I bought records. I bought one that someone almost told me you've got to go and buy.
Yeah.
So, or obviously your age. I mean, obviously we're all of a certain age, around about 40 mark, aren't we? All of us, really.
I don't think so.
No.
Oh, dear.
I mean,
I'm a bit younger than that, Tony.
Dark Side of the Moon. I was 7 or 8 when Dark Side of the Moon came out. It would not have registered.
No,
it was it was
the first one.
Pinky and Perky, and dare I say Rolf Harris, Two Little Boys, and things like that.
The first Pink Floyd song that would have registered.
There's Another Brick in the Wall.
Wall.
Yeah. It was a Christmas #1, bless it, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
Kids singing in it, and then when you were a student, like maybe 5 years later, the Doors, Leonard Cohen, Pink Floyd, in a very cherry-picking way, which is maybe how my kids now look back on, I don't know, the era that I was in, but it does make you go backwards rather than forwards, and it's quite an interesting journey.
Really interesting.
Yeah, that's a very fair, very fair point. That,
Really good
Well, I got into these things by my sister. My older sister used to visit the Record and Tape Exchange in London. And you could buy a bargain bundle of records for 1p each.
Really?
Wow! Classic 70s prog rock things.
I don't know how she found it.
Yeah. Anyone here know Bebop Deluxe? Bebop Deluxe.
I've got Bebop Deluxe. I've got the albums.
Yeah.
I've got the albums.
Yeah. I mean, he's still going. The main guy. He's brilliant. Yeah. Bill Nelson.
I used to go to Beano's, and Derek knows Beano's in Croydon.
Absolutely.
And I used to get, because I used to live in Croydon in Beulah Hill, around my Crystal Palace. And I used to go there, the market, and then I would go into Beano's, and I used to buy loads and loads of albums, fill me bags, fill me boots, and then bring them back to the. I've still got them. Still got loads of them. There was
the ones
one
you
I
haven't
called,
got, Andy Hesford bought in that charity shop where you put them all.
I'll have somebody.
Do you remember those Top of the Pop albums?
Yeah,
Sounds like
with the very lurid sleeves. Yeah.
You buy those really cheap. Find a song you liked, and then go and find that album and get the actual People's ones.
There was an album called Mouth in the Clouds. That was the first one that I got that started to get me into that kind of music. And then Pink Floyd came.
So we're just going to get a couple of quick blasts of a couple of early songs, and then let Derek take us on to phase 2, basically. So we're going to have a little quick blast of Apples and Oranges, another very quintessential period piece, really. Jug Band Blues, that is the one song I think, I wonder how that got onto an album. That's my personal opinion.
Well, that's the last Syd Barrett involvement. That's really his last contribution to the Floyd.
Yeah.
See where he was at and where they were at.
Yeah, and the wonderful Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. So let's have a little bit of this, and then we'll let Derek take us on the next part of the journey.
Got a flip top, cigarettes in the pipe, feeling good in the top, shopping at shop shit. Looking on the sunshine town, feeling very cool. With the butchers and the bakers and the supermarket stores, getting everything she wants from the supermarket store. She's on time again. I catch a mighty eye and I stop and have to think what a funny thing to do, 'cause I'm feeling very
It's awfully considerate of you to think of me here, and I'm most obliged to you for making it clear that I'm not here. And I never knew the moon could be so big, and I never knew the moon could be so blue, and I'm grateful that you threw away my old shoes and brought me here instead dressed in red. And I'm wondering who could be writing this song. I don't care if the sun doesn't shine, and I don't care if nothing is mine, and I don't care if I'm nervous with you. I'll do my loving in the winter.
Boy, don't.
Little by little, the night turns around, counting the leaves which tremble at dawn. Lotuses lean on each other in yearning. Under the leaves, the soul is resting. Silver contrast for the heart of the sun. Over the mountain, watching the watcher, breaking the darkness, waking the grapevine. One inch of love is 1 inch of shadow. Love is the shadow that ripens the wine. Something controls all the heart of the sun. The heart of the sun. The heart of the sun.
I mean, there's little like chimes going on in there, isn't there? It's amazing. Oh, Derek, you're on mute, mate. Sorry, Derek.
Back off.
That's a
Perfect.
little vibraphone.
Vibraphone, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was old
yeah,
Lionel Hampton. No, it wasn't Lionel Hampton, but there's the sort of thing he would have played.
yeah. So I mean, sadly, we're at the point where Sid's told to sling his hook now, aren't we? Really?
Oh, he's now out of the picture. Just before moving on, though, we're just talking about the context of Floyd in the early days and stuff. I'm that much older than everybody else, and I was 19 in '67. And I have two real abiding memories of the early Floyd. One was the first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I was brought up in Connors Quay, which is like just the other side of Chester. So it's about a 5 mile.
Sam's smiling. She must be from that area. Is that your neck of the woods, Sam? Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. The local record shop in Connors Quay, a few singles, nothing like the Pink Floyd album. So onto the push bike. And for me, a 5-6 mile round, 6 mile there, 6 miles back was a long way to go in the push bike. So I went to Rushworth and Draper. And in those days, there were no headphones. You'd say to the guy, "Can I listen to Pink Floyd, please, mate?" And he'd put it onto a deck, he'd play it, and he'd stand there and stick your head into a booth and listen to it. So 27 minutes later, I got to the end of the first side and thought, what the hell is all this about? I've never heard anything like this in my life. So I thought, well, I've come this far, I might as well listen to the other side. Listen to the other side, mate. Yeah, no problem, man. So back to the booth, head in, got to the end of that and thought, oh, this is even weirder than the other side. And we're talking 32/6 for an album. But the time I was an apprentice at Summers's, so I'm trying to think how much I'd have been earning. I started 64 or 5 on about £5 a week. So by 67, I must have been on about eight quid, maybe 9 quid, probably not 9, about £8 a week. So it's a sizable chunk of disposable income, as it were. So I dare say I gave mum and dad a couple of quid. And I've still got the album. I should have brought it.
Absolutely worth something, an original pressing, you would think.
It is, yeah. And it's in quite good condition. It's on the black and blue Columbia, well, as it would be. I mean, it really was bought as soon as it came out. But the other one was when you used to go to dances in the mid '60s. So when I was, the beat groups going to the Civic and all the Liverpool bands that play there, you'd go and you'd dance, hope to meet a young lady. And when you got the transition through into the sort of rock psych world, by the time you get 67, 68, people would be standing at the back saying, look, you can't dance to this. You just can't dance to it. And I always remember my first wife went to university at Bangor in North Wales. And the university circuit in the 60s and early 70s was where all the mate bands you ever wanted to see, they were playing the university circuits. And I remember we went to see the Pink Floyd at Bangor. And this is around the time of Set the Controls. I always remember, everybody standing there. You can't dance to this. And they used to have a lot of trouble there because, some of the locals, lads used to like to come down from the farms to the university and a little bit of a chat with the fists and stuff. And I always remember at the end of their set, Roger Waters said to the audience, we'd like to thank the people at the front for enjoying themselves. And we'd like to thank the people at the back for not throwing bottles at us. Oh, that was great. That's how it was, most people, well, yeah, people who went to listen to them and people who went to dance.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting time. But that was the whole thing about that. I remember buying Hendrix's album just after it came out. And wow, I rushed double-decker bus up to the bass guitarist's house. Bunge, you've got to listen to this. You've never heard anything like it. And that was one of the great things about sort of growing up in that era. You were hearing stuff for absolutely the first time.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
That must have been quite special, really, because, I mean, these days, well, that sounds awful. It's all on demand, isn't it? You don't have to really make an effort to actually get to like anything. You just go on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And for a penny or nothing, you can have it. And I mean, I've shared a few posts recently from musicians and the like arguing quite rightly, we've spent time writing and recording and producing and making what we do, what it is. Can we not be paid for it? And the answer is they should be paid for it. I mean, whatever we do for our time and effort should be worth something, really.
Absolutely.
And it's,
I think there's the other thing as well about listening to a whole album.
Mm.
Was it Adele recently said you need to listen to, you can't play, I want my album in this order because that's the way I made. Was it Adele? I can't remember.
Yes, it was.
Because
argument with Spotify. About.
with Spotify, you can just like, oh, if I say, they say, oh, you might like this, you might like this, and they cherry pick things, and you don't get to hear the whole album with the not quite so good ones at the end and the brilliant ones, but not always, obviously. And I think that's another thing that people are missing out on is the album experience. Because when you got an album, you'd listen to the whole thing. But we had a stereo that was one of those that did that, and you had to
we had one of them. Yeah,
one of those you had to put 1Ps on, or else it would wouldn't work. So you had a whole pile of 1Ps taped on. And there's the whole idea of an album as opposed to singles or just downloading a song.
No,
but it was also
true.
Wasn't there another point as well? There was someone who said, and I can't remember, that there were people who risked life and limb on pirate radio to play records.
Yes.
And some of the records being played on pirate radio are a lot more experimental. Certainly the likes of John Peel on the Perfume Garden and Radio London was responsible for some of that.
Absolutely.
Mark Roman, people like that.
Yeah.
And you got people playing records, and there were people listening with transistor radios to that or Radio Luxembourg After Dark about. And as this guy said, if you're listening to something which is hard to get hold of and almost impossible to find on BBC Light programme, it must be a very important record in your life. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, I mean, people played Penny Lane by the Beatles. There was a lot of conservatism about that.
But also,
very
bear in mind,
rarely...
it was a jailable offence. If you were
well, technically under the Marine Offences Act, but you got people who wouldn't listen to Strawberry Fields Forever because they didn't understand the Beatles getting to that stage, but they would listen to Penny Lane, and it brings it back to the I could never be a fan of Whistling Jack Smith again. It's sort of there was a scarcity of pop music on the radio and television. I mentioned in the chat about Ellis Stavjak being used as a theme to The Tyrant King, as made by Thames, one of the first Thames television productions in 1968. And The Tyrant King is a very interesting period piece, and there's a lot of records in that. Astronomy Domine by Pink Floyd's in it, the Rolling Stones are in it, there's a brief clip of a Beatles one. They probably paid the licenses to include these across the 6 episodes of this. As a period piece, it's actually quite interesting to listen to. And nowadays, it's so commonplace that you'll get things like that being used as incidental music. At the time, it was unheard of. I mean, even The Prisoner used All You Need Is Love, for which they paid 48 quid to use it in the last episode. I mean, music was such a scarce thing. Nowadays, it's there when you switch on the telly at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're getting ready for work. Here we are.
I could never dream of going to scout camp without listening to Radio Luxembourg After Dark.
I listened to Radio Luxembourg. Well, I tried. It was a bit of a sort of... It was coming through in waves, to quote Pink Floyd again.
Yeah, they did that. I was going to say that's a Pink Floyd quote, isn't it? Just very quick news. I don't know how many of you know this, Chapel. The composer Harrison Birtwhistle's just died. He was 87, which is a fantastic age, but
what did he
wrote
write?
some beautiful music. He worked, he did a lot of film type music. The Last Supper. He did a lot of really nicely observed music. Nothing loud, shall we say.
It's not an obvious name, I must say. It's a very English name.
Yeah, well, he went by Harry, but Harrison Birtwhistle. And also Cristiano Ronaldo's son died today. Connor being very old. That was just
okay, that's a bit different.
On the news about an hour ago.
Okay.
He's had twins. I don't know if it's one of the twins or if it's... he's got 4 children, but unfortunately, sadly, one of them's died today, which must be a truly... horrific thing, for anyone, and certainly with someone like him being, such a public figure, terrible, absolutely terrible. But I'm just scrolling through the news on Harrison Birtwhistle, and he played with the Royal National Theatre in London, composed for them. he's played all around the world. Might not be someone that is particularly well known for a particular piece of music, but obviously
I seem to remember him getting a bit of stick for what he chose to play just before Land of Hope and Glory on the last night of the Proms.
I think you might be right, Paul. I think I saw that article.
What did he play?
Anyway, well, just
he
thought
played something modern of his own, and the audience didn't like it.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Well, I mean, talking about audiences not liking it, I mean, you know, the sad proof of the pudding was when Syd Barrett left Pink Floyd. It didn't really have any hits, did he, Derek?
Well, no, his first album
The Madcap
charted for about a week. Madcap Laughs, yeah, and his second album in some charts didn't chart at all. So he maybe had, you could argue, you know, he had 1 week of one album worth of hits.
Taking he's not with us anymore.
Well, no, he's not. No,
he died 2006, wasn't it? He died.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. His real name was Roger, wasn't it? Was he not?
Yeah, it was Roger Keith. Yeah. Apparently, he got his name. I saw a couple of things about that. One was that he turned up at a scout meeting without the beret, with a flat cap, and somebody called him Sid because that was considered to be a working class kind of flat cap name.
Yeah.
Another one I saw was it was after Syd Barrett, who was a jazz double bassist, I think, and he changed the I to a Y. So maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe it was neither.
Yeah,
but he certainly wasn't born. His mum didn't call him Sid.
Sid James wore a flat cap in lots of films, didn't he?
That's right.
That's the best impression. That's brilliant.
So we're moving through the period where Sid's disappearing and Pink Floyd are growing, really.
Yeah, he's very much out of the picture now, as far as Pink Floyd are concerned. And what we're coming up to the Ummagumma, but before Ummagumma, we're now in the sort of early part of '69. They were gigging with a set list that they were calling the masked gadgets of
Oxymenes,
yeah, and sometimes known as the Man and His Journey. And this is when they were using this azimuth coordinator to guide the music around the room. And that was one of those sort of famous lost albums. But quite a few of those songs did turn up then on Ummagumma, which was their 4th album. They had a soundtrack album in the June of '69 called More. It gave them a hit. I mean, it gave them a top 10 album hit. But Ummagumma's interesting. It was a double album with one side in the studio, with each of the guys having a quarter, half a track, half a side, basically. And that was actually produced by Hurricane Smith. And the live side, they recorded 2 or 3 different gigs, and they produced that themselves. And that's one of my all-time favorite Floyd tracks we're going to hear a bit of, Careful with That Axe, Eugene.
Oh, yeah.
They do remanufacture, a bit like Frank Zappa. They do sort of remanufacture their tracks from time to time. And the movie Zabriskie Point, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, gets referred to as, come in, number 51, your time is up.
Yeah. And that's playing a Syd Barrett song as well, aren't we, Derek?
Well, that's right, because it was beginning of 70 when he released his Madcap Laughs album, his first solo album. And interestingly enough, he didn't fall out with the band because David Gilmour and Roger Waters produced half the tracks on it.
Well, didn't they play on it?
And they played on it.
A bit.
They played on it as well. Yeah. And Hugh Hopper, Robert Wyatt, and Mike Ratledge appear on the in the lineup on the album as well. And the one you're going to play is one of the ones produced by Gilmour and Waters.
So let's have a listen to this, and then we've got something really interesting coming up next, haven't we? So we need to play enough of this to get to the naughty bit.
M100.
Madam, you see before you stand. Hey ho, never be still. The old original favourite grand. Grasshoppers, green Bavarian band, and the tune they play is an Askin five. So the trip to Ivanhoe, up, down, to and fro. You have no word. Please leave us here. Close our eyes to the octopus ride. Isn't it good to be lost in the wood? Isn't it bad so quiet there in the wood? It meant even less to me than I thought, with the honey flower yellow prickly seeds, clover, honey bottom, mystic shining feed. Well, the mad cat laughed at the man on the border. Hey ho, up the Talbot, eat, run, shouted kangaroo. So through that tree they cried, please leave us here. Close our eyes to the octopus ride.
There's a fair bit of a Beatles vibe going on in that song, I reckon.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's so much more upbeat than his other stuff, isn't it? Really?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And you can really hear the contrast between where he was at and where the Pink Floyd were moving towards as well.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I think Andy's disappeared. Never mind.
Yep.
He always has to go and have a lie down about now because.
No, he messaged before Tony to say he was going.
Yeah, no, he has to. His thingy.
He changed it into a pumpkin.
No, it's his diabetes, isn't it, poor lad?
I didn't know he was diabetic.
Yeah, no, he's very diabetic. He would tell you this himself. I'm not divulging something that.
No.
You know,
I'm sure, obviously not.
So all of a sudden, though, I mean, isn't this funny with bands? They've petered along for 3, 4, 5 albums and tours and trying their best. What then suddenly happens for some of them? I wonder if anyone could ever define. Is it one song? Is it what they do live? Is it how they present themselves that suddenly takes them onto a new level? It's a strange thing, isn't it? Some bands go somewhere and other bands stay where they were. Because we're moving on almost to, well, we've got some interesting stuff first, but we're heading towards Dark Side of the Moon, which is one of the 10 best-selling albums of all time, probably one of the 5.
Yeah, and it was never number one.
No,
it was never number one.
But it's
Isn't
probably
that
never
amazing?
been out. That and Fleetwood Mac Rumours and Queen's Greatest Hits and ABBA Gold have never been out the charts since they were released, have they?
The Eagles' Greatest Hits.
Eagles' Greatest Hits, Alan. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Westlife's Greatest Hits, but never mind.
Both of them. To lower the tone.
Who's got a copy of Westlife's Greatest Hits? No, I
You couldn't even admit it, even if you had.
West who?
Exactly. West too.
Now, my daughter's got both Spice Girls albums. Though.
Oh, Tony, where are you going with this?
Yeah, she was. Brian, what are you doing there, man? What? Is that a man?
It's an alien from Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, it's an alien. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, the cover art of Pink Floyd was always interesting, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Didn't they have a cow's udder on one?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
That was the other one.
Hey!
Oh, very good.
Very good.
Very good. Yeah. Anyway, Derek, so where are we at? We're at this
we're at
unusual moments, really. This is like, go on.
Back end of number of 1970. Floyd released Atom Heart Mother, first number 1 album. Sid Barrett around the same time released his second album, Barrett, really sank without trace. There was that Relics compilation released around then, and Medal. But what's interesting around this time, we're now January 72, with what was Sid Barrett was up to, because he was now very much back in Cambridge, and he never actually was a part of, but he did famously gig with a band called The Last Minute Put Together Boogie Band. And on the 27th of January 72, they played a gig at the Cambridge Corn Exchange. And that was Sid Barrett guesting on guitar, Jack Monk, bass, John Alder, better known as Twink, drums, and a couple of other guys. And that was recorded. And Sid Barrett actually goes on to form his own very, very short-lived band called Stars, with the rhythm section there, Twink and Jack Monk. But I was looking at a couple of notice boards over the last few days, and people were saying, has anybody ever found a recording by Stars? No. So no, absolutely. So we're going to hear shortly, this last minute put together boogie band could well be the last ever recording by Sid Barrett. I mean, Twink obviously went on to Tomorrow. He was with the Pretty Things long enough to be on SF Sorrow, one of their most famous albums. And Jack Monk's one of these guys that you don't really come across that often. You know, he's played with the likes of Lol Coxhill. He's toured with Otis Spann, Lowell Fulson when they've been over. And Stars did play what was billed as their debut gig on the 24th of February 72 at the Corn Exchange in Cambridge. And the tickets are listed as 65 pence in advance and 75 pence on the door. And the headliner that night, 8 p.m. till 2 a.m., was MC5 from America.
Really?
If you've ever heard that, they are proto-punk.
Oh, they're really loud.
Kick out the jams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are you part of the solution or are you part of the question?
Yeah.
So Barrett get into confectionery after that, did he?
The what, sorry?
I say, did Barrett go into confectionery after that?
Oh.
With
How do you mean?
licorice all sorts.
Oh. I don't know.
Barrett's licorice all sorts.
Oh,
very good.
Uncle Brian.
Sorry about
well
that.
done, mate. I
Uncle
wonder where you're
Brian.
going with
Oh,
that.
Well done, that.
yeah.
Kindly leave the
Barrett's licorice all
stage.
sorts.
Yeah.
Kindly leave the stage.
Yeah. So what we're going to have now is I mean, basically, this was probably a big thing back in the day, because even though he'd left Pink Floyd, he was still known as, you know, one of the founding members, and for him to come along and play live probably was, you know, quite a big thing, really.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so we're going to have a little bit of the introduction. Then we've got snippets of 3 of the songs he played on. So here we go.
It's not playing, Tony.
Here we don't go.
Okay.
Doing so well. They're all
We
playing
have
so
been.
well.
We have been.
Done
Hold
so
on.
well tonight.
What have we been up to then? Let's stop sharing and start sharing again. Oh, it should be. It should be.
It's ticked, is it?
No,
Yeah, no,
there's
it's
nothing.
ticked. Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
It's called drinking that wine. If you want to clap along.
Oh, are we ready? Here we go. Let's
Yeah,
have
yeah, we got it.
It's called drinking that wine. And if you want to clap along with it, you know, it's a funky going to church getting drunk on the holy wine, right? When Jesus started his disciples, you know just how to keep them in line. First thing when I did, he took water and the wine, 'cause he was drinking that wine. 13,000 years, still drinking that wine. My father got up early in the morning. He had to milk the cow. He did not know it was over, but he knows better now, 'cause he was drinking that wine. Drinking that good old Christian wine. Number 9. won't you stop and say hi? Give me something that I can reason with you by. Don't walk on by with a run on your face.
So, some interesting stuff there, wasn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we move on to them becoming really famous, I think now would be a nice time to see if Jason and Heather can can bring some psychedelia to the table.
Well, I don't know
Or
about psychedelia, but
what are you going to do for us, guys?
well, so one of the things that Sid Barrett did was he was asked to do a review of David Bowie's album in 1967. So Arnold Lane came out February 67.
Yeah.
David Bowie had an album titled David Bowie that came out, I think it was June 67. Now, obviously, I was born in 67, so I'm looking back
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah.
And Sid Barrett was asked to do a review of the single that they released from that, which was Love You Till Tuesday. Now, from my personal point of view, that David Bowie album, which my sister had, I loved because they're all kind of nursery rhymey. And what you're talking about, sort of the Middle England stories and idyllic things, they were very like that. So from my point of view, it was a real part of my childhood. But Sid Barrett was not having any of this, and he said, it's a joke.
Really? Yeah. Was this when the Laughing Gnome came out?
It was that same.
It was that era,
album.
yeah.
Yeah, it was that album. And he just said, maybe he was talking. He just said that the song "Love You Till Tuesday," which ends with a little bit of a joke at the end. He said it's a joke song. It's not serious, and it's credited now with changing David Bowie's direction and pushing him into the megastar that he is. And David Bowie always looked back and credited Pink Floyd as being one of his huge influences in his life. But he said if Sid Barrett had to just said it's rubbish, basically, it might not have changed David Bowie's direction. So
was this when he was still called Davy Jones and the
it was
something
just
locker?
after that. Just after that. This is the first one, and it really was of that era. But it's if you look at Arnold Lane and then some of the songs that are on that album, you can see how they're similar. So, but the one I'm going to sing for you is one that I sing as a kid. Now,
okay.
And this
She
is
sings it every day.
See,
All the time.
She's still a kid. She's still a kid.
It's like Ring a Ring of Roses to me, but this one is.
When it's up in the morning and she's singing it.
Oh, it's got to be a good thing.
Uncle Arthur. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of Uncle Arthur by David Bowie.
Not immediately.
And it's because of that time, everybody thinks of the Laughing Gnome.
Uncle Arthur.
That's
Uncle Albert.
Albert, yeah.
So Uncle Arthur, but everybody thinks of the Laughing Gnome, but he actually did some very beautiful songs. But because of this comment by Sid Barrett, he changed direction. So anyway, so we're going to be doing this a cappella, and Jason's just literally going to clap on this because he doesn't know the words. Okay, so you ready? I was going to whistle the first part of it, so. Strikes the bell for 5 o'clock. Uncle Arthur closes his shop, screws the tops on all the bottles, turns the lights out, locks it up, climbs across his bike and he's away. Circles past the gasworks, past the river, down the high street, back to mother. It's another empty day. Uncle Arthur past the gasworks, Uncle Arthur past the river, Uncle Arthur down the high street, Uncle Arthur follows mother. Round and round the room it's flying, how he ran away from Mum. On his 32nd birthday, told her that he'd found a chum. Mother cried and raved and yelled and fussed. Arthur left her no illusion, brought the girl round, save confusion. Sally was the real thing, not just lust. Uncle Arthur past the gasworks, Uncle Arthur past the river, Uncle Arthur down the high street, Uncle Arthur follows Sally. Round and round goes Arthur's head, hasn't eaten well for days. Little Sally may be lovely, but cooking leaves her in a maze. Uncle Arthur packed his bags and fled. back to mother, all's forgiven. Serving in the family shop, he gets his pocket money, he's well fed. Uncle Arthur past the gasworks, Uncle Arthur past the river, Uncle Arthur down the high street, Uncle Arthur back to mother. There you go.
That's terrific.
Oh,
That's
these are
terrific.
fabulous. Singing unaccompanied, even with clapping, is
What do you mean unaccompanied? Give me credit.
No, the clapping was really good.
That
But
was.
it really is hard, isn't it? Because when you sing with a guitar or any other instrument, you know it's there to accompany you, and you being able to just throw your voice out there. It's such a brave thing to do.
Yeah, but
It
Tony,
really
I have
is.
been singing it for 50 odd years.
No, but
Yeah.
it's still something about singing independently on your own. It's
But
a
I think
brave thing.
I don't know if anybody's aware of that album by David Bowie.
I don't know it.
Yes.
No,
Yeah,
no.
it's the sort of thing that John Peel used to play. And
It's very whimsical, as you said,
very.
very middle class. And David Bowie wasn't middle class like the guys from Pink Floyd. And maybe he kind of sat back and thought, yeah, and maybe I changed of direction because of what Sid Barrett said. But I love the album because it was like my John Pertwee album, if you like. But
Yeah.
other people
Yeah.
not so
terrific,
much.
man.
Oh no, that was truly fabulous.
Well done.
Are you going to
Well done.
do? Is Jason going to do? Are you doing something else, or do you want to do something else in about 10 minutes?
Well, the other thing that we were looking at, and it's I just found out today. Sorry, if we're going off topic, but we well, we could do this, or you could do the one Pink Floyd one that everybody plays.
Oh, you can do another brick in the wall on an acoustic guitar. That's impressive.
So, what we were looking at, he's playing another brick in the wall. And
He is. I can hear him.
I don't know the words, but I
You
was
don't
looking
need
at,
to know the words. You just play that bit over and over again.
Teacher.
I was looking at what inspired David Gilmour, and he said one of the songs that really inspired him was Lead Belly.
Oh, really?
And it was the one that what's it called? Lonnie Donegan brought over, which was what's it called? The Railroad.
Rock Island Line.
Yes, that
Rock
one.
Island Line.
And he said that was his favourite song of all time, and it's the one he learned to play guitar on. No, I'd not heard of Lead Belly at all, really. I'd kind of vaguely heard of it, so I was looking at that today, and we were just fascinated by how many songs of this guy's people have played. And how I just didn't know very much about it, but the one that really did hit us, of course, was the Nirvana one that they did, which was My Girl, it's called In the Pines, or We're Going to Sleep Tonight. And Nirvana played this, so we were going to do that one, but as nobody has actually done Wish You Were Here, do you want to
Go on then, do Wish You Were Here. You can do both if you want, you know.
Than me singing, so he can sing.
Well, no, we can all sing this.
Yeah, you all.
Everybody mute yourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sing along, mute yourself, and
Hang on a minute, you'll hear a funny sound in a minute.
We know all the words.
You should know.
You'll help me out with the words, won't you? Sorry.
Thank you, Jason.
That sound alright?
Yeah, sounds lovely.
I'll tilt myself down so you can see. I'm really playing this on the guitar. All together now.
Stay. So you think you can tell heaven from heaven, blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail? A smile from a friend. Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes from ghosts? Heart on
is for trees, hard out for a cool breeze, cold comfort for change. Did you exchange a walk-on par in the wall for a lead role in the cave? Thank you. How I wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. Still we found the same old fears. Wish you were here. What's the last verse?
That's
Oh,
all.
I just switched the phone off. This is another verse, isn't it?
Just play that.
That was fabulous. It's a lovely piece of music, isn't it? I mean,
I didn't write it. I believe.
no,
it.
I know, but but there's something about certain songs when you actually hear them played simply like that you can actually see how good a song it is.
Absolutely.
Because the production is what makes some songs. I mean, no matter what we think of them lyrically, it's production that makes some songs work. But when you take a song back to the bare essence of the melody and the structure of it, flowing together like you've done there, you can
It's the
see that there's
words.
something good there. That's a lovely song, isn't it? Yeah,
It's the words
Fabulous.
that make it, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
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 absolutely right.
yeah. So no, thank you for that. But
Well
in
done.
10 minutes or so, if you want to do what was the other one you were going to do, Heather?
Oh, we were gonna do an old Leadbelly song
Yeah,
called "In the Pines."
yeah. Well, get yourselves together with that in about 10 minutes time, and you can.
10
Let's let
minutes.
Derek take us on, because I have a feeling this next bit is this is the sort of where we start getting to the popular stuff, Derek. Really, isn't it?
Well, this is where they found international fame with Dark Side of the Moon. But just before that, just before Dark Side of the Moon, they released another movie soundtrack called Obscured by Clouds, which is
That's
for a
right.
French film, La Vallée. Probably sounds more French if a French person with an accent said it. But what's interesting about that is there's a track on it called Free Fall. And it was written about Eric Fletcher Waters, which is Roger Waters' father, who was killed in the war at Anzio. It had a marked impression on Roger Waters. And a lot of his stuff comes back. I mean, the last album is very much a requiem for post-war Britain. But I always remember seeing David Gilmour interviewed, and he said that and Roger came into the studio and he said, "Oh, boys, I've got another song." And I said to myself, Gilmour, I hope it's not another bloody Second World War song.
Oh dear.
And it was.
Well, he did a whole album of it.
Oh yeah, they crop up all over the place. I mean, the war, when you actually saw the live concerts near the beginning, what a sort of Spitfire comes down on a wire, sort of crashing into the stage. I mean, absolutely awesome. But the big breakthrough absolutely came with Dark Side of the Moon. But unlike today, I mean, they took it on the road for over a year before it was actually recorded. The first gig was at the Brighton Dome on the 20th of January, 72. And it was released in the March. It was originally going to be called, and is a title you'd struggle with now, I think, Eclipse, brackets, a piece for assaulted lunatics.
That sounds very, yeah.
Well, the senses have fun with that.
I mean, it's managed 294 weeks on the UK charts, but in America on the Billboard chart, it had a staggering 736 consecutive weeks. Absolutely unbelievable. And it's the first album with lyrics completely by Roger Waters. And it's really when Norman Smith bowed out. I mean, he was moving away around the time of Atom Heart Mother. He's listed as executive producer then, which probably meant that, you know, in name only, because the band now, most of the, until Yet to the Wall, the stuff's all produced by the band itself, and it's all credited as producer Pink Floyd. But I mean, the one track we'll listen to is the Great Gig in the Sky, which has got the unbelievable voice of Claire Torrey. Absolutely incredible.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And this is when they became a stadium band.
So we're going to have Great Gig in the Sky, and what else have we got playing here, Derek?
Oh, you've already played it, mate. It was the Syd Barrett stuff.
Oh, of course, yeah. You know when your little brain sorts forgetting where we're up to, because we've got Shine On You Crazy Diamond coming up in a minute as well, haven't we? But
Oh, yeah.
Great Gig in the Sky.
Love
This is
that
I think
track.
this is possibly my favourite Pink
Yeah.
Floyd moment, this song, you know.
It is awesome.
And I am not frightened of dying. Any time will do, I don't mind. Why should I be frightened of dying? There's no reason for it. You've got to go sometime.
It's almost orgasmic, isn't it?
Oh, it's
I
an
was
awesome
thinking
track.
that, yes.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
It was all ad-libbed, I think, wasn't it? Wasn't it just they asked
It
her
was
to just sing something,
just sort of scat along to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
she completely improvised that. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Oh, amazing stuff. So the Crazy Diamond reference is to Syd Barrett that
That's
we're
right,
coming
yeah.
up to, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And interestingly enough, there was almost an album before that. The intended follow-up to Dark Side was going to be an album called Household Objects, but in the sort of back end of '73 now. And that was really experimental, even by Floyd standards, where they were using household objects, literally wine glasses and pots and pans and bottles and aerosol cans. But even they decided that by the time they got to 3 months into the recording, it wasn't really going very far. So that was abandoned basically in favor of Wish You Were Here. And in fact, some of the sounds, the tracks, one called Wine Glasses was used in Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Quick question.
Again, you know, like
Yeah,
the
go on.
Who's Lifehouse.
Yeah,
Raised from that.
Paul B's got a question for us.
Yeah, quick question, Derek. I wonder,
Okay.
Given when we get to the Wall and when Floyd really start being the big hit that a lot of people will know them for now, I wonder what Syd Barrett's thoughts were. Do you think, was he ever asked about that?
I dare say he was asked a lot about it. I'm not sure whether I mean, his state of mind was pretty much shot, I think, by the time, because he was going downhill steadily for some long time. So I don't think it's a sort of Pete Best
It's almost here's
situation.
what you could have won moment, isn't it? Really, you know. In that
Yeah,
sense,
but
that
I
he
don't
could have
think
been part of
it's
that.
quite your Pete Best situation, where, you know, he could have been the most famous drummer in the world. Very nearly was, but not quite. So I don't think it would have troubled Syd Barrett as much. I mean, basically, after that Stars thing, he sort of dropped out of the music scene completely. And in fact, he took up painting and stuff like that. And he did actually revert back to his birth name, and he dropped the Syd. So he effectively, I wouldn't say turned his back on the music industry, but really, I think he very much had put it behind him. You know, who knows what was actually going on in his head, to be honest.
Makes it all the more remarkable into 2006, which is
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Lovely. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So we're going to be playing a bit of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. And what I love this song. I don't know how much of it we can play. Roy Harper, he comes onto the scene now, doesn't he? And
that's right. When they were recording "Wish You Were Here,"
Yeah.
Roy Harper was in the joining studio recording his latest album, and he wandered into the studio and was listening to the Floyd recording, and they were trying to lay down the track. Have a cigar, and Roger Waters, surprisingly, was unhappy with his own vocals, so they asked Roy. Waters actually invited Harper to sing on it, and he ended up. And it's the only time that somebody who's, you know, not Floyd is credited on the album. I gave you that the track we're going to hear, fabulous track called "When an Old Cricketer Leaves the Crease."
Oh yes,
is on the HQ album, and David Gilmour actually plays on some of the tracks on that album as well. And a guy called Dick Parry plays sax on the "Wish You Were Here."
Yeah,
because he plays a lot of the Floyd stuff.
So we're gonna have a bit of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Go on, Brian. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I remember Roy Harper. He did like an interview on a telly, and he said what you just said. He said, "Now everybody," he said, "don't forget," he said, "when you listen to that song," he said, "that's me talking, singing." So and I always remember it because Roy Harper was funny, wasn't he? I loved him.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Remember the one he did on the beach? He did a song where he was on the beach with a girl.
Yeah.
And they were being naughty, and he said people kept on looking at them, thinking, "Oh, they are, aren't they?" But he puts that in his song, and it's brilliant. Never forgot that song.
Yeah,
oh, he's a great guy.
Great fun albums.
So we're going to have no, it's all right, right? A bit of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which is sort of like a homage to Syd, really.
That's right.
And then you know, we're going to then have as much as we can play of a 7-minute song. So we'll play as much of it as we can. Same is true of this Shine On You Crazy Diamond. This is the live at Wembley. Wembley, 1974. This is one of the times when they played it live. We'll play a couple of minutes of this and as much of the cricketer leaving the crease.
Yes.
when the day is done and the ball has spun in the umpire's pocket away, and all remains in the groundsman's pace for the rest of time and a day. There'll be one mad dog and his master pushing for four with the spin on a dusty pitch with 2.6 pounds of willow wood in the sun. When an old cricketer leaves the crease, you never know whether he's on. If sometimes you're catching a fleeting glimpse of a 12th man at silly mid-on, and it could be Jeff and it could be John with a new ball sting in his tail, and it could be me and it could be thee, and it could be the sting in the ale, sting in the ale.
It's a wonderful song. I mean, it's 7 minutes long, and I would love
must say,
to hear all of us. But it's so wonderful, isn't it?
Oh, it's an awesome song.
I must say, I think there's been quite a few young cricketers leaving the crease like that of late.
Yeah, well, yeah, a Lancashire one the other day. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, they
So,
really didn't, though.
Well, they
Took their time over it.
They took their time, didn't they? Anyway, listen, I'm conscious of the fact that.
Silly mid-on.
Oh, very good. The
Yes, I know.
time does creep on as we do these things. It would be lovely if Jason and Heather could give us their other performance, and then if they must leave us, they can, but they're welcome to stay to the end because we've got three
Anybody
more.
else who wants to play anything?
I don't. Alan and Sam, did you want to play anything tonight? Are you happy just watching along?
We are simply voyeurs tonight.
Ooh, we like a bit of voyeurism.
Voyeur.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go.
Do not worry.
We have to take the slack in. You've got animals to feed.
Oh, I know. Sam's day job. Yeah.
And well, she's got a horse to feed and dogs.
Oh my word!
And a cat. A snake, a ferret, and a guinea pig.
Pardon. A snake and a ferret.
Right.
Don't put them in the same. Don't put them in the same cage. That won't end well.
Anyway,
talk about menagerie.
He wishes.
He wishes.
Yeah.
So, seriously, it's been fascinating listening.
Oh no, you're most welcome.
I'm very open-minded about Pink Floyd, but it's interesting to have heard a lot of the copy and story about it. Yeah. I know they're very high-level people and stuff like that, and a quiet taste for some of us.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. No,
but I mean, you can't deny the musicianship and creativity.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's really if I could say anything, that has got to be a good thing in any music.
Yeah,
and someone said
absolutely.
before, you've got to find that moment which takes you forward, and that's the difference between survival and the alternative. But for the majority of bands, they hit the wall, and that's the end of that. Generally.
Oh, the wall! There we go.
The wall again.
but they generally hit the wall, and that they hit a creative wall. And unless someone's got a few new tricks up the sleeve, then it tends to say, well, look, we've written our story, and here's the epilogue. That's it.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think I have to respect the creativity.
Yeah.
I did have to play a a Floyd song with somebody a few years ago, and it was called Coming Back to Life. And the lyrics were fascinating, because if you're somebody that's been crossed out by society or even by the people around you for a number of years, and you feel in some way that you're being put down, then the words of that song do have some commutation with someone in that situation. In a sense, a bit like Simon and Garfunkel and one or two other artists, where it can almost, you listen to the song and you can make it autobiographical for yourself as you're listening to it. That's possibly my fairly limited comprehension of it, but I know that the Pink Floyd were full of obviously creativity and social comment from start to finish, and all respect, and especially Dave Gilmour, who's an astonishing player.
Very distinctive.
So that's my take. But got to say good night to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Sam. We shall speak very soon and see you at the weekend for rehearsals.
And nice to see your face, Derek. You may or may not know, but Sam is a fellow Keyite.
Oh, right.
Yes, he said.
Hey, Derek.
Yeah, well, you'll meet Derek's coming over a week Saturday.
D Road I was from.
D Road, right.
Richmond Road.
Richmond Road.
Born in Richmond Road by Clayton's.
Oh, right. I remember Clayton's, the big hill.
Yeah, big hill.
There you go. You see.
Gonna be related.
It's a carved name in a tree, Derek. And if it's in Wepper Park, is the actual name about 25 feet up now?
It's such a small world, isn't it? Anyway,
absolutely.
We're going to say good night. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Night.
So, Heather and Jason, you're going to hit us with some 1930s folk music, then, aren't you?
Blues.
Yeah.
Can you hear us okay? Sorry,
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who, like us, heard this from Nirvana, this is again one of those instances of looking back through time that, excuse me, we heard this through Nirvana. And
The
only
60s
today
bands.
made the connection with Leadbelly, that this is a Leadbelly song that Nirvana actually covered. So because this was one of David Gilmour's favourite artists and all of the band, it's kind of that history. So it's only very short.
It's a bit of a tenuous link, isn't it?
Yeah, very tenuous. But we thought it was interesting.
I could play fragments of Pink Floyd songs, but
yeah,
we'll
we
go
were
for a
going to
whole
do Comfortably Numb, but we thought no, it's a bit too depressing, really.
No, it's just we've not practiced Comfortably Numb together at all, so it's bound to go wrong.
Whatever we do is bound to go wrong.
Yeah, this one we have practiced.
Lovely.
Together, we practiced.
Well,
one
we went for a
verse
walk because
together.
it was sunny, so we didn't really practice that much. My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine. I will shiver the whole night through. My girl, where will you go? I'm going where the cold wind blows. In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine. I will shiver the whole night through. Her husband was a hard-working man, just about a mile from here. His head was found in a driving wheel, but his body was never found.
That's awful. I'm gonna have nightmares now. She's not singing about this. She's singing about drowning me in a river. I don't know.
My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine. I will shiver the whole day down once more. My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines where the sun don't ever shine. I will shiver the whole night through. That was very low
Fabulous.
for me to sing.
Fabulous. Oh, that was great.
Great effort.
Really good. Really good. So, Derek, we need to move ourselves on to another bit of controversy, really.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's not just about the price of bacon, but it's about what you say when you're on stage, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The follow-up was Animals, great album. And famously, when they were filming, well, not filming, a photo shoot for the album cover, and they were floating a full.
Oh, hold on.
Pig broke free and sailed gently and serenely into the five path of everything coming in and going out of Heathrow. Apparently no harm was done. Nobody managed to crash into it. And it apparently turned up in Kent some little while later.
Oh.
I mean, I think it's a great album. Not everybody likes that particular album, but it's one of my favorites. But what's interesting about it, it was their 12th album, gave them a #2. But they toured that album. And the tour was called In the Flesh, and they actually performed Animals and Wish You Were Here on that particular tour. But In the Flesh turns out to be the first track on the Wall album, and it's also repeated. It's on the fourth side. If you look at the double album of the Wall, it's actually on the fourth side of that as well, a slightly different version. And the Wall came about very much after an incident. I think it was the last gig on the In the Flesh tour at Montreal in Canada on the 6th of July 77. And Roger Waters became sort of increasingly annoyed at the lack of interest people were showing. Firecrackers were going off, nobody was paying any attention, everybody was shouting. And you imagine they were playing Wish You Were Here, some very, very quiet elements in that. And Roger Waters got so annoyed that at one point some fan got a little bit too close and he actually spat in his face. And at the end of that particular gig, it wasn't just Waters that wasn't happy. David Gilmour, he'd had enough as well. And he failed to return to the stage for the jam session that they did. They did a sort of blues jam at the end, and Snowy White, who was turned up, as, of course, in the surrogate band later, he took the guitar solo in that. And it was very much this that was the basis for The Wall some years later. Roger Waters, love music, love performing, hate audiences. Wouldn't it be great if there was a big wall between us and the audience? And of course, that's exactly what they did. Then they would come on and talk about The Wall after the next pieces of music. Well, Pigs,
yeah,
was one of them. Yeah, and In the Flesh. Now, this is
we must point out to people
lyric.
there's some words used in this song that we would not normally allow or use, but it was written in 1976, 7. Yeah, and it was written for a reason, wasn't it? I mean, he was making,
he was making a point.
Statement. He was making a point, observed statements. So we're not playing this to cause anybody to take offence. It's a reference to what was done and said at a time, 40 years ago. And he had his reasons for what he was writing about and saying at the time anyway. So if you listen to it in the right concept of connection, I don't think you need to worry about the words that someone uses when they say their poem or sing their song. So we are going to play some of in the Flesh, and don't complain, because that's not why we're playing it, isn't it, Derek? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's all about the experience in Montreal and how that impacted on Roger Waters' thoughts and views on his next album.
Yeah. So let's have a little bit of Pigs. 3 different ones, apparently. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
show to feel the warm thrill of confusion, that space cadet glow. I got some bad news for you, sunshine. It isn't well, he stayed wall. Now there's one in the spotlight, he don't look right to me. Get him up against the wall. And that one looks Jewish, and that one's a cool. Who the hell is riffraff into the room? There's one smoking a joint, and another with spots. If I had my way, I'd have all that shot.
So quite a powerful piece of music, really.
Yeah, I love that.
Just
It's-
wasn't hanging about, was he?
I played that about 1,000,000 times.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is
Um,
powerful.
Absolutely.
Definitely got something, visceral going on there, hasn't it?
But it's also his reference to the surrogate band.
Yes, I know
back
you
to
were
the
saying,
Montreal.
yeah.
You know, the people weren't really that interested in listening or whatever, so it didn't really matter who was playing. I think that's one of the points he was actually making.
Which sadly is true,
Yeah.
because I mean, we put on the one of these free festivals back in January, and one of the first, we did poetry in the afternoon and singer-songwriters in the evening, and it was funny really because everyone listened to the poets. It was really, really well, everyone in the room, 50, 60 people. We had 6 poets, and everyone listened. The first guy comes on to sing. And he's a brilliant guy. He was runner-up in the Liverpool Songwriter of the Year award, Junior Davis. Fantastic guy, lovely voice, great singer, songwriter. And he basically said after his first song, guys, is anyone listening? I'm singing a song here. Why are you not listening? Because unfortunately, as does happen, a lot of people had started talking to each other because it was louder than the poetry. So if you talk when someone's reading poetry out, everyone can hear you talk. But if you talk when someone's strumming a guitar and singing, technically, in a way, you there's an assumption of sorts. You can't be heard. But he did sadly have to make the point that I've been asked to sing tonight, and it would be nice if you listen. And that's on a very local level, not on a paid 50 quid, 100 quid, professional stadium gig. And so it does happen. But hey ho, not everybody's perfect, are they?
Well, I hope they
So-
listened after that.
Well, they did actually. No, they did, Paul, which is good. I mean,
like you say, shame you had to
so
make
we're
the
moving
point.
on to the end of the beginning, or the beginning of the end, whichever way round.
Oh yeah, very much. I mean, the wall in so many ways represents the end of the second phase of Pink Floyd. I mean, one of the things that's interesting, I don't know how well known a fact it is that during the recording of the Ward album, the keyboard guy, Rick Wright, was sacked by the band. And by the time they got to the tour, he was actually just on the payroll. Which is
I actually didn't know that until you told me about it. It was sort of mind blowing, really, when you consider he was
What a
there
way to go.
pretty much from the start.
Oh,
And
he
in a
was.
way-
He was there from the Abdab days.
Well,
I mean,
say,
he was
he
one
was
of the
there for
original.
so long.
in a funny way, much as the very much guitar and bass Pink Floyd, but the keyboards and the the sound of the keyboards, and at times the melody from the keyboards is actually what makes their sound.
Yeah, I mean, the whole
it-
soundscape's keyboard based.
Yeah.
Very much so. But it's also a very big high as well as big lows. The wall. I mean, the another brick in the wall, as somebody mentioned earlier, got them to #1 there for 5 weeks. Their first #1 single, and it was also #1 in America. And it was they only ever had 2 hits in America, 2 hit singles. Money was the other one, of course, from Dark Side. But the album itself, when they took it on the road, it didn't play in an awful lot of places. They played in America, is where it all kicked off on the West Coast. Then it moved to the East Coast from LA to New York. Came to London, where they did some recordings, and also played in Germany. And the concert, I managed to get to the Earls Court one. lucky enough to have a backstage pass. I mean, it was an absolute awesome experience.
You babysat for Roger Waters, didn't you? Or
That's right. My second wife was Pink Floyd's PA. And around this time was when Pink Floyd was splitting away from Roger Waters. And she was technically Roger Waters' PA. And he was away somewhere. And he got us to babysit their house for a couple of weeks in East Cheam. And it was a great big place with a tennis court at the back. Found myself chatting to neighbors. But he had a home studio. And, I'd poke my head through the door. And there was all this equipment, obviously. But there were all these cassettes lying around. And I thought, oh, should I have a listen? I thought, no, absolutely not. That was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I knew before his wife that he'd been sacked.
Yeah.
Funnily enough.
Well, I mean, my ex-wife, her uncle, her dad's younger brother, was a roadie for David Bowie and the Police.
Oh, right.
And she got taken to meet David Bowie and Sting and Andy Summers at Milton Keynes Bowl in about 1983, 84, around about that time. So she actually got taken backstage and met David Bowie and Andy Summers and Sting because their uncle was their roadie. You know, how cool is that?
That is cool.
Yeah,
that is one cool uncle.
Isn't it just? Yeah. I think she got to meet Genesis as well, actually. I'm pretty sure he roadied for Genesis as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And here's the weird thing. She, in a way, she didn't really like music. This is funny to say, isn't it? She met like 3 or 4 of the biggest bands of the 80s and whatever. But, you know, if anything, she was very nonplussed. She was more a radio listener rather than the owning of a cassette or an album. She used to go mad because I used to, when I had my bookshop in Formby, next door but one was the record shop, so all my wages went to the record shop.
Quite rightly
I'd come home, I'd sneak home with records, and because they were so thin, slide them into the collection. And you know, she was always like, you know, clothes for the kids and food, you know, rather than records. Anyway, we must quickly move ourselves on because one way or the other, you know, no matter how much fun we're having, you know, time just rushes on. So yeah, big band. I mean, they were a huge band by this point. Everyone wanted to see them.
Oh,
big stage shows where they did build the wall, didn't they? I mean,
well, they did, but it was 10 meters high. They built it in the first half of the show. And then in the interval, the wall was complete. And one of the absolute highlights in the second half of the show, when Gilmour plays Comfortably Numb, he rises above the wall itself on a cherry picker. So he's way up there playing this guitar solo. Absolutely awesome sight.
Yeah. Didn't they get asked to play in Berlin when the real wall was knocked down? Were they...
No, they did. They did. There is a Berlin concert of the wall, and it's with various artists. Van Morrison's on it. Alison Morissette, is it?
Alanis Morissette.
Alanis Morissette.
Yeah. A bunch of people.
She's
that was when the wall came
she's
down.
touring. Is it 25 years since she did release Jagged Little Pill? Which is a fantastic album. Flea off the Red Hot Chili Peppers plays bass on it. Brilliant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Jagged Little Pill. If you've not downloaded it, folks, get downloading it. Lucy Pickavons, who's friends with Andy and I, great local singer. She does some great versions of Alanis Morissette songs. But she's almost like a rap beat poet delivery. Alanis Morissette. You know, she really spits the words out. Brilliant lyrics, brilliant performer. So if you've not got Jagged Little Pill, go and get a copy. There might be when you download the new version, you always get extra tracks, don't you? So
Exactly.
We're going to have a little bit of bits of the wall now, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So we need to find out. Oh, here we are. So we're going to have a little bit of Waiting for the Worms, the intro to Comfortably Numb, then the bit everybody likes, and then the end of the wall, outside the wall.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
So very another very military-based piece of music, isn't it? That?
So much of Waters' stuff is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So anyway, this is the start of Comfortably Numb. Then we get the bit that everybody likes. Oh, hold on, that's the same one again, isn't it? Hold on. These things happen.
Hello.
Is there anybody in there?
Yes, I'm here.
Not if you can hear me.
Yes, I
Is
can
there
hear you.
anyone home? Come on now. I hear you're feeling down. Well, I can ease your pain, get you on your feet again.
But you can't.
Relax. I need some information first. Just the basic facts. Can you show me where it hurts? There is no pain, you are receding. A distant ship, smoke on the horizon. You are only coming through in waves. Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. When I was a child, I had fever. My hands felt just like two balloons. Now I've got that feeling once again. I can't explain, you will not understand. This is not how I am. I have become comfortably numb.
Rather good, that, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
Just,
Absolutely brilliant.
just bear with me because my mouse has disappeared.
Oh,
Your mouse has disappeared.
Yeah, my mouse, not
Gone
my
to find the
mouth.
worms,
I
are
thought you said
The
your
worm.
mouth.
Yeah,
no, not his mouth.
no.
Find that hard to believe, Tony.
Yes,
Yeah. No, I'm serious. My
The
mouse
cold
is-
water, mate.
I mean that in the nicest way.
I know you do, mate, but I don't know what's happened to me. My mouse has gone.
Oh,
How
dear.
bizarre. How bizarre. That's very...
It's frozen.
It's... No,
Oh,
that's
that's a different
strange,
film.
this.
Oh, back again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. How weird is this? No, we've done that one. Ignore me. Ignore me. No, we've done that one, boys. No, we don't want that
Are we
one.
time for
We don't-
slow hand claps yet?
Yeah, shush you. I'm going to stop sharing. I think rather than worry about it, we'll move on. We were going to
Yeah.
play a bit of the end of the wall, but we're at the end is nigh anyway. I mean, they're almost not talking to each other now, Derek, are they?
No, it really is all falling apart. I mean, they did in the December of '81 release an album called Collection of Great Dance Songs, technically a compilation album, but they're all re-recorded or different versions. So, it's an interesting album in its own right. And then came the last album in the April of '83, The Final Cut. It was their 15th UK album. It was actually the third and final UK #1, so commercially it did very well. And the sleeve itself describes it as a requiem for the post-war dream by Roger Waters, performed by Pink Floyd. And then it lists David Gilmour, Nick Mason, Roger Waters. So Rick Wright is well out of the scene by now. But also on that is Andy Bound, who featured in the Wall stuff, and Raphael Ravenscroft, the sax player on Baker Street.
Yes. Really? Yeah.
Yeah, he's on
not
that
Bob
as well.
Holness then. Not Bob Holness.
Probably not.
And of course, some talk now that those that are still have reconvened or are reconvening or some such.
Oh well, they are, because we're going to end
there's a
tonight
single.
in a few minutes.
The new single.
We've got a couple of bits here, and then we've got one more bit, and then they've very nicely in a way got together to play a Ukrainian folk song.
That's
really,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Which we're going to end with. So we're going to have a very short blast of "Wish You Were Here," and then a little bit of the last Roger Waters song of wartime memories, isn't it? The Gunner's Dream.
The Gunner's Dream.
It's funny when you don't realise until someone points it out how much of a connection to writing about war and all its consequences he actually had. Because a lot of the wall is about the fear of conflict and war as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, totalitarianism and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So let's have just a little bit, because obviously we were very luckily treated to a live rendition of it earlier. So we're just going to have a little bit of "Wish You Were Here," the remixed version from a collection of great dance songs, which is very apt when you started telling us that people went to Pink Floyd concerts and couldn't dance. So maybe we're very self-referential in their own appraisal of themselves. So a few minutes of "Wish You Were Here," and then a bit of the Gunner's Dream, and then we're on to the end, or rather, whatever happened to them next.
Exactly.
Remains merciful.
Yes, and neither would you, Derek, this star nonsense. No, it isn't.
I'm sure of it.
So you think you can tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain. Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail? A smile from a veil. Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts? Floating down through the clouds, memories come rushing up to meet me now. But in the space between the heavens and the corner of some foreign field, I had a dream. I had a dream. Goodbye, Max. Goodbye, Ma. After the service, when you're walking slowly to the car, and the silver in her hair shines in the cold November air, you hear the tolling bell and touch the silk in your lapel. And as the teardrops rise to meet the comfort of the band, you take her frail hand.
Quite a moving piece, really, isn't it? That.
Yeah, it's very much Roger Waters, that album, very much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he went on. I mean, isn't it funny in a way? Because he went on to almost go off and do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But the listeners and the record buyers wanted more Pink Floyd, didn't they? In effect, they didn't want Roger Waters. On his
No,
own.
the band itself
Whatever
was
the
much
pros
more.
and cons of it are.
Very good. Yeah, he was far less successful than the others were. What's interesting, I mean, they never took the final cut on the road, but what was quite interesting, I thought, was that was released around April '83, and in the October of '83, Dark Side of the Moon entered the record books. It was the
10 years in the charts, probably.
Well, it's 491st consecutive week on the Billboard chart. And the one that they had held the previous record, I would never have guessed in a million years. Johnny Mathis, Greatest Hits.
Wow. My mum had that. My mum had that. She probably bought one
gracious.
It'd been a long time before I
word.
got to that album.
Oh,
As the one he knocked off the history spot.
But this is the thing, isn't it, about popularity in music? I mean, you know, Val Doonicker and Johnny Mathis, my mum loved them, you know. Well, actually, he's a lot better than you think, really. The Greek chap who had
Demis Roussos.
Roussos. Great voice, you know. He's
absolutely.
He's heard by every dog in the world, I think.
Yeah, and just before we move on to the end, Derek, I must say one of my favourite singers has just announced a tour, Joe Jackson.
Oh, right.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
He's playing
I haven't heard from him for years.
Yeah, well, he's on a comeback tour. So he's going to be at the Barbican in York on the 29th of July, Symphony Hall Birmingham 30th of July, Edinburgh 31st of July, Albert Hall Manchester 2nd of August, Cardiff 3rd of August, Portsmouth 5th of August, and London 7th of August. New tour. Joe Jackson, genuinely a great singer, great pianist, great voice. If you can go and see him, do. If I can afford it and get there, I'll be over to Manchester because he is utterly fabulous.
York's nicer.
York probably is, but Birmingham, Manchester's just that tiny bit nearer.
Yeah.
Bar the parking, so maybe
Well,
York is
yeah, yes.
yeah, maybe York is better now. You might have a point.
Do it on the train in an hour and a half.
Yeah. So 500 weeks of 10 years at the top of the charts in America. And in a way, I suppose Dave Gilmour really has been the man who's kept Pink Floyd alive, hasn't he, really?
Oh, yeah, he's really come to the fore.
Yeah,
I mean,
brilliant. I love Dave Gilmour.
They started on the various projects. 84, Rick Wright formed a band called Z. Roger Waters, also in 84, Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. Gave him a number 13. Eric Clapton guested on that particular album. I saw them do that at the Hammersmith Odeon. I was sitting there. They'd been on stage for about 3/4 of an hour. And a voice behind me said, when's Eric Clapton coming on? And I felt like turning around and saying, well, actually, he's been on for the last 3/4 of an hour. But it was a good gig. And then, of course, the Floyd rose phoenix-like from the ashes, Gilmour, Wright and Nick Mason in 87 with a momentary lapse of reason. And then, of course, they had the G8 reunion in 2005.
Had Sid died about then, or was that?
No, he died in 2006.
Okay.
But it was around there. Yeah, he died shortly afterwards. Technically, he could have been there, but that was never going to happen. And they did a 20-minute set, and it was the last time that they ever performed. And Sid died in 2006, Rick Wright in 2008. So, you know, there will never be another Pink Floyd concert.
No, it's well, I mean,
not
apart from what I mean, assumingly in a way, when the right reason comes along, people can come back together and do something. I mean, the Eagles famously said they'll never play live till Hell Freezes Over.
That's right.
Then went on tour as the Hell Freezes Over tour.
That's right.
You know,
Absolutely.
It's only the Jam. It's only the Jam that don't seem to want to ever talk to each other again. That are all still alive. I think everyone else has at least one member's died, haven't they? So we're going to have a little bit of a real flashback to the brilliance of Dark Side of the Moon, and then we're going to have a quick chat and then end with the new single, aren't we? So
that's right.
I mean, Dark Side of the Moon is one of those albums that genuinely stands up 40, 50 years on. I mean, it 50 years on, isn't it, really? Coming up for, isn't it? And I think sonically it's brilliant, lyrically it's brilliant, but musically it's brilliant. So we're going to have a couple of minutes of Brain Damage and a couple of minutes of Eclipse. Then we'll have a quick chat and end with Hey Hey, Rise Up.
The lunatic is on the grass.
Oh, I love this. Just love this.
The lunatic is on the grass. Remembering games and daisy chains and laughs. Got to keep the loonies on the
grass.
The lunatic is in the hall. The lunatics are in my hall. The paper holds their folded faces to the floor. And every day the paper boy brings more. And if the dam breaks open many years too soon, and if there is no room upon the hill, and if your head explodes without the bones too, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. my head. The lunatic is in my head. You raise the blade, you make the change, you rearrange me till I'm sane. You lock the door, throw away the key. There's someone in my head, but it's not me. And if the cloud bursts, thunder in your ear, you shout and no one seems to hear. And if the band you're in starts playing different tunes, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. Touch and all that you see, all that you taste, all you feel, and all that you love, and all that you hate, all you distrust, all you save, and all that you give, and all that you deal, and all that you buy, big borrow or steal. And all you destroy, and all that you do, and all that you say, and all that you eat, and everyone you meet, and all that you slight, and everyone you fight, and all that is now, and all that is gone, and all that's to come, and everything under the sun is in June, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon.
There is no dark side in the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all dark.
Absolutely jaw-droppingly good, isn't it?
Ah, that took me back to I lived
You
on the
forget
top.
how good it
When you were
was.
about 12, I know.
Shut up, I wasn't. I lived at the top of a big old Victorian house.
Yeah.
And I used to have red lights all on the just
Well, we've
brilliant.
heard about your behaviour of a night time.
Never mind. I had this big old radiogram that was there before I got there, and it wasn't working. I took all the valves out, cleaned it up, put new valves in, and the sound was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I used to have that record on, laying on my bed like that, just with the red lights all around my room, playing that. Oh, I was back there then, Tony.
Yeah, it's just a utterly brilliant album, isn't it?
Loved it, love it, I still do.
Powerful album.
I feel exhausted.
Well,
absolutely.
So you should. So, Macca, what's your where are you on this now? Have we woken you up? Have you?
Oh, I was never asleep.
No, I know. I'm joking.
Don't be telling fibs.
Just because I slid off to get
slid off the chair.
Make a cheese bussy for a few minutes.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, we noticed you didn't offer us any.
Yeah, well,
get your own.
I did buy cheese today. I must admit, I had some chips and crackers at
no
lunchtime.
excuses.
Yeah, but
Wensleydale with chives.
You didn't bake your own bread, Tony.
I didn't. No, I just bought Jacob's crackers. Other brands are available. Other brands are available. Listen, guys, we have had a fabulous time tonight.
Yeah,
it's been brilliant.
It's always brilliant, but I think there are certain bands and what goes on behind the scenes and how they came to be that only someone like Derek can really
phenomenal piece of
spend
work.
that
Mm-hmm.
time
Mark,
and bring that
fabulous.
knowledge and
Brilliant, brilliant.
you know, full experience into the mix. Because
And isn't it sad that
like
they're
Heather
not
and Jason,
together?
like Heather said, in a way, she was right. We all go backwards and go, oh, Dark Side of the Moon's a really good album. I must buy that and listen to that. And we do. We don't always know how it became Dark Side of the Moon. You know,
Yeah.
why did we all bush out and buy that rather than Metal or Animals or Ummagumma? You know, okay, you know, technically, yeah, they're a bit different. I get that, but you know, we should build up our listening and our knowledge based on the whole progression of where the artist and the music and what they were doing comes from. You know, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone's got origin stories and influences and things that happen in their life that makes their songs. I mean, like Roger Waters with all the war stuff. It's
Yeah.
obviously a huge influence on him.
Absolutely.
I mean, just
So he was about a year old when his father died.
Mm.
They wouldn't remember him at all.
Yeah.
Because he was a pacifist originally.
Yeah.
So he was an ambulance driver.
Well, that's often the thing about involvement in a situation like that. My ex-wife's granddad was an army medic, and he was actually the very first. Well, technically, I say the very first man. He was in the first group of men to go into Bergen-Belsen.
Oh, right.
And he talked about the war all the time. He was in North Africa. He was all over the place. He got married in the war. I mean, we knew more about the war than he did when you listen to him talk. But we never, ever heard a single word other than he said, "Yeah, I walked through those gates," and that was all he ever said.
Yeah.
I walked through those gates, and you could see that look in his eyes, and you thought, "I'm not going to ask him anything," you know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't think he ever held a weapon in anger, George. You know, he was a medic. He was a very quiet, you know, what was that? I forgot what his job was now. I think he was a bus conductor in a past life. He worked for Philips, the radio company, later on.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, we must say our thanks to one and all, and I've just had a few messages in from people who've been listening, which is lovely that the people out there. We've even got a listener, believe it or not, in Africa.
Wow.
Wow.
Hi. In Africa. And we've been watching you streaming.
Hello, Africa.
We're in Africa watching your Pink Floyd show, and we've enjoyed it. So how weird!
Brilliant.
Wow. Hey, we've got me fame at last.
International.
International.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
The power of Facebook, or what then? So
in that sense, yeah.
So next Monday, we're going to have an open mic to promote Words and Music, especially anyone connected with the Saturday the 30th of April. Brian Gibson, are you with us on the 30th? Do you know yet?
I don't know, Tony.
You don't know. We'll talk.
You know what
about
I'm
that.
like?
No. It's not a worry. Not a worry.
My head is everywhere.
You are.
I mean, I apologise for being late tonight, but I did say.
No, you weren't.
I've been making a model.
Yeah.
I'm preparing myself for something, so I can't say what yet.
No. So, Brian, we'll talk. But a week Saturday, 3:00 onwards. Derek's going to be there. He'll have his book available. People can buy a copy at a very decent price. Derek, is it? 15,
Absolutely.
£15 on the
£15,
yes. Signed and a free bag.
I've got mine, and I've sold 3 more of yours.
You've bought a few. You've bought
and
a couple.
I've bought a few. Well, through yeah.
Oh, brilliant! You're very good health, sir.
Yeah, but
well, you're the one who did it, not me.
So, folks, you can win a copy if you can drop a message to myself or Derek saying who replaced Roger Sid Barrett in the Pink Floyd sound. If you Google it, the answer will be out there. Just let one of us know. We'll throw all the names up in the air. There's a random number generator on Google you can use. I used it the other week and I got it wrong, but then I got it right. But that's another story. But we've had a fabulous time, and I'm sure everyone's enjoyed Andy playing live, Heather and Jason, everything that's gone on tonight. The 15th of May, Sunday the 15th of May, Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend, Keith Moon, and John Entwistle. And we're going to do Tommy. We're doing Tommy the Rock Opera, featuring Elton John on piano at least once. All in his very high heels. I seem to recall he wore very high heels.
That's right.
He's only a little guy.
Platforms.
He's only a little fella, isn't he? Bless him. But his version of Pinball Wizard is definitely going to be featured because I've already downloaded it. So Derek will fill in all the other gaps. We'll probably have live at Leeds. We'll have Tommy the Rock Opera,
yes.
And
Barbara O'Reilly might well figure at one point.
See me, hear me, feel me. My Generation. The high numbers. The high numbers.
Substitute.
Well, we're going to look back at the Who. And I've even got a T-shirt I will wear because I saw them live. Saw them live twice actually. Once with John Entwistle. Sadly, he died, and then once with.
Who are you going to look back on, Tony? Did you say
the Who? The Who. Yeah, in May. In May. But, the door is open. The door is open for people to bring their contributions to this show, stroke podcast, whatever we call it. Next Monday, Paul Macca, you can bring some writing to the table, and if we've got a guest, it's nice to let the show go in the direction that the guest has given us, and bring a little bit of interaction in like we've done tonight. But when we're doing our regular open mic set up on a Monday, anyone's welcome. A singer, a poet, a writer, someone who just wants to say something. You just want to come on air and say happy birthday to me, July the 20th, in case you want to know. Not that I celebrate anymore because I'm 56 this year. We don't want to talk about it. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure of an evening. We're gonna end with the new Pink Floyd song, which is amazing to say. I didn't ever think they'd ever release anything again. They've teamed up with a guy called Andrei Kilemfyuk, who's from Ukraine, Derek, is that right?
Yeah, he is, band called Boombox.
Boombox, yeah. And this is probably going to be number one, I would imagine, if charts are still existing. I would imagine.
I would hope so.
A lot of people have been out and bought it because it's all going. As it's the right thing, like Live Aid and some of these other things like the Mandela thing that Peter Gabriel and people did. If the right people can come forward at the right time and do something and say to the rest of us, just put a couple of quid in now, and there's 1 million of it, that's 2 million quid going over to Ukraine, then it's got to be at the right thing to do. So I've paid and downloaded a copy. I hope some of the rest of you do. If only record shops existed, you could buy a copy, but a download will do if you can't do it any other way. So I apologise for not knowing what the lyrics are because I don't speak Ukrainian.
Yes.
Україна зажурилася.
nice, that. Wow, love the guitar in that as well.
It was good.
I mean, it's
Fabulous.
superb, that, isn't it?
Was that Dave Gilmour? Was that
Dave Gilmour on guitar, and
very
a
distinctive.
guy called Andre from Ukraine, who's in a fairly popular band over there called Boombox.
There's this year's Eurovision winner.
Well, could be, couldn't it? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, there's another story. Maybe, Derek, dare you do a Eurovision special?
Oh, my word.
Actually, shouldn't you do it in
you.
May? Shouldn't you be doing it in May? And you've chosen the Who. Oh, no.
Well, do it next May.
Next May, yeah. No, I quite like the Eurovision. It's always had something.
Oh, wait, Tony.
No, it's
behave.
They're very well produced and brave, aren't they? Some of these people.
But the songs are awful.
Well, you don't speak Ukrainian or
That's the old
Belarus
point of it,
or
right?
Belgian, do you?
No, some of them.
Well, they'll sing in English now. They'll
listen,
sing in English now.
It's all
anyway.
show. It's all dressing up and
Brian
show.
is off to sunny Spain in a week or so. He's off to
Oh,
enjoy
there
himself.
you go.
Off to
Oh, there you go.
Andalusia, isn't it? Yeah.
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 Oh, nice part of the world.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Right in the middle. Right in the middle.
Yes,
Out of the
indeed.
way of the
Yeah.
madding crowd.
Yeah, and he didn't invite me. Not that I've got a passport, so I couldn't have gone.
Excuse me. Hey, I did invite you.
I know you did. I haven't got
did
a passport.
invite you.
I haven't got a passport. They wouldn't let
And
me
you
out.
said you weren't wearing your bikini, and I said, well, you're not coming.
I tell you, I will. I've lost half
remember
the
that
stone. I'll
conversation?
happily wear my bikini. Anyway, guys, listen. We must end now. We have had a wonderful night.
We have.
Next
Well done,
Monday,
Derek.
Macca
Thank you
and
very
anyone
much.
else, bring
Yes,
your
so
words.
sorry I
Bring
won't be
your
with you,
words.
folks.
Bring
Really
your words
enjoyed.
to us next Monday, or a song you want to share, or a song you want to sing, and we will have a great time.
I'll let the boss know.
Derek, we will speak to you before, but see you a week Saturday.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we're going to have a great time at the Murphy's Bar Free Festival of Words and Music. We've got Daisy Gill, we've got Only Child, we've got the Andrew Hesfords, etc., featuring Kasuki on guitar. We've got the Dregs, we've got Stephen Porter, who is going to perform dressed as Crichton from Red Dwarf. Yes, I tell not a
Okay.
lie. I'm filming it. We will try and live stream it if we can, but we're definitely filming it. It's going to be a great day. We want to see any of you there and all of you there, as many of you as can come, or watch or listen to it online, Paul. Paul Mead,
Yes.
that is.
Yes, yes, yes.
And you know, for those of you out there who've put up with us all night, thank you very much. We have enjoyed ourselves. We hope you have
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah, great stuff.
And thanks
Great
to
stuff.
Colin and everyone else who popped in earlier on, and other Heather, let alone Jason and Heather, who are going to do another folk night for us in the not too distant.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
Derek will send you an invite to come and watch what they do.
Brilliant.
Look at that.
Jason, their daughter played guitar last week, and Jason
So
played
glad that I
violin.
missed it.
Heather did some singing. It was fabulous. We had a New Zealand folk music and a story
Wow.
of 1840s moving from England to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Jason's great granddad, I think it was. And that's up on, I've put that up on YouTube. I'll get this up on YouTube, and then we're going to work on this podcast thing. So you might see your little heads floating on the internet with a little bit of I don't know how it works, but my mate Gavin's going to help us get that going. So we're going to start a proper podcast. You will all be a little bit of it, or a large bit of it, or maybe we'll blur you, and maybe put you in an oasis. I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
Derek doesn't do the modern music. He only does the proper.
I don't blame you sometimes.
I don't blame him either. Anyway, guys, listen.
Tony,
Let's all say,
we'll have to have a swing and all that kind of music.
Yeah,
big band.
Definitely.
Big
Definitely.
band.
We would love that. Brian, if you want to chat to me about that, more than welcome.
Yeah, well, I've got loads. I've got Bing Crosby albums, Sinatra
Oh
albums,
no, Brian,
Dean Martin albums.
You would be much. Absolutely, not a problem. I mean, Derek's doing the Who. Then in June, he's going to do one on female artists, aren't you?
Yeah, girl groups.
A girl groups thing. Because we don't do it on purpose, but a lot of the music we share is male orientated, isn't it? And that's the way it is in the past, and maybe up until recently. But there's some wonderful ladies out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Sing, write, play instruments. Nina Simone, Ella Fitzgerald,
Sarah Vaughan.
Oh, yeah. Derek is going to do. He's got 2 months to do the research.
Kathy Kirby,
yeah, of course, yeah, and Sandy Shaw, Sandy Denny.
Once I had a secret love.
That's it.
So we'll do a rundown of girl groups and female singers in June. That'll be a late night that we all need to be here for. No, it definitely will. So, guys, listen. We really.
Shall we all dress up as girls that night then?
Why not? Why not? Yeah,
I got big fishnets. I'll work with Zoe.
So anyway,
we'll have to have long hair. Well, Derek's got his long hair already, so
well, the rest of us got 2 months to grow.
Bit of lipstick.
Lipstick on your collar. Anyway, guys,
exactly.
we must end proceedings. Thank you to one and all.
Thank you.
And we will speak soon and see you all. Those of you who
see
can
you
make
soon.
it Monday.
Soon, I'll say.
Yeah. Aye. Thank you, folks.
Take care. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.